Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4 of the Rewatch Podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, who also believe that there is a waste of space if the universe is empty. Joining me for this fine recording session is one Stephen Howard.
Who's still looking for the hidden message in pie. Cherry, vanilla, who knows what message.
Vanilla pie?
Vanilla pie. I was thinking of lemon. I said vanilla, okay? It was a bad idea.
It's my favorite Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz movie.
I was thinking of Vanilla Sky.
Ooh.
Classic movie.
Amanda Howard is here as well.
It went poorly. I'll accept it went poorly. Okay. Gosh.
Who does never heard of vanilla pie, but is getting suspicious now of the static out of my daughter's white noise machine. I'm wondering if we should be listening to that for any sounds or
Hidden pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
One Nick Castillo is
Blueprints.
here.
That was the word.
Nick Castillo is also here as well.
Nick Castillo is here, and even though I'm shaking, I'm still okay to go.
One Josh Cox is here.
AWAC status negative.
And as always, last but never one who is the least, Mr. Gary Delaney.
This movie's a lot about believing, and I'm sure the people who financed it believe the story would be coherent.
Oh boy, this is going to be this is going to be an episode if we've already started off with that from Gary.
I just died on the inside.
We are here with our final movie for this season to discuss Contact, as suggested. The movie is Contact, not Contract. Contact. As
This
suggested,
was
We have to make a
conversation.
description because there was unfortunately I would say I don't even know if it was a near miss or if it was a feigned near miss by Mr. Gary.
It was griefing. I was specifically like a callback.
doing a little trolling.
It was good.
Trolling,
Caught
that's
me
the
off
right word.
guard. We do a little trolling.
So the movie Contact, as suggested by Mr. Nick Castillo, and he had asked that I read the IMDb for him here. So it's a 1997 movie directed by Mr. Robert Zemeckis. Dr. Ellie Arroway, after years of searching, finds conclusive radio proof of extraterrestrial intelligence, sending plans for a mysterious machine. Dun, dun, dun. And I'm going to turn it over to Nick to kind of kick us off with the discussion on this movie. Nick?
Nice. Thank you, Tyler. Happy to be here. Yeah, I thought this was a really fun movie. I've seen it several times over the years since it came out and growing up. And I've always had an affinity for sci-fi, but I really thought that this was a good movie that encapsulated sort of that nostalgic 90s vibe. So it was one towards the top of my list that I suggested. Tyler went over the synopsis. As you mentioned, it was directed by Robert Zemeckis from Warner Brothers. The music was also something that kind of hit a sweet spot for me when it was
Nick,
playing.
you should
a couple
face your
times.
mic. You keep turning away from your microphone.
Got a
Keep
cut.
going, Nick. You're doing just fine.
What an ass. Anywho, yeah, I really
That's why
like
I'm
this
here.
movie. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you are. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, and the music also hit a really good sweet spot for me too. That there were a couple little soft notes throughout the film that brought me back to that time period of watching it when I was younger. Music by Alan Silvestri, and the book as well, which I haven't read. I'm intrigued to do so at some point, but it's based on the book by Carl Sagan. I know somebody in our group, a couple people had talked about reading the book as well. He's got his hand up. And so if there's any discrepancies between the book, I would be curious to hear those as well as we go through the movie.
Sorry.
Go for it. No, go for it.
I was just going to say I will keep all comments about the book until the end because I do have comments about how the book is different than the movie, but I don't think it necessarily impacts our discussion of the movie.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
The book was waiting for me on my desk one day, and I asked what it was, and Stephen said, "In case you wish to read it too." And I was like,
Hint, 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 hint.
Hint,
okay,
hint.
well, thank you, I guess."
Subtle.
As
Very
I
subtle.
carefully put the book somewhere else off to the side
How many
because
pounds of book is it, Stephen?
Pounds?
Pounds of book?
How many
Like-
pounds? How many pages?
I think it's nearly 400 pages.
400 pages. Okay.
Not massive.
434 pages.
Boom! Look at that.
Nicely done. All right. So the movie starts with the young girl Ellie in her room trying to call on the radio. She says Wisconsin radio operator W9GFO CQ CQ, and she's clearly using an old ham radio to try and see how far she can communicate, how far the radio waves she can pick up are from where they are in Wisconsin. And it's very innocent, but it really kind of starts right off from the beginning. He's very scientific, even as a young child. Even what's your take?
I wanted to bring it back even a little before that. The first
Sure.
scene actually is
Ooh,
the zoom out of the Earth, and you get all this cacophony of sounds and whatnot, and you don't actually understand exactly what's going on as you start getting further out. Oh, it's okay. You're in the solar system. You're going further out. The sounds start getting lower and lower, and you start realizing that these are sound waves, and the farther you go back, it's the older the sound waves are, because those are the first sound waves being sent out. So you hear some of, like, and we get to it in the movie as well, but some of Hitler's speeches and stuff like that, because those are some of the first things that were actually broadcast out there. So I thought that was really fun. And then it goes out further. You get the galaxy, then you get the galaxies of galaxies, you get the clusters of blah 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 blah. It's pretty cool, and I really did enjoy that. And then it actually comes, I think it was neat that it came out kind of to be in Ellie's eye, so it's like the universe is in your eye sort of thing. But I don't know, that's me reading into stuff.
Yeah, no, I thought that scene was fantastic to the way it started off. I mean, you'll often see the trope where it's just the camera starts over the Earth, and then you hear the cacophony of the city, and it zooms in all the way down to our lowly hero just sitting down there, a regular worker bee. But then this just like keeps panning back and panning back and panning back, and eventually it just gets to the point where it's basically silence except for the whooshing of stars and sounds, and it's just you're just looking at this ridiculous scale, and it already reminded me of Carl Sagan is known for multiple quotes about how insignificant we are, basically, and it just was a very good animation of kind of giving you that sense of like, okay, we are incredibly small in this whole thing. Gary?
I'll disagree. I thought it was overly ambitious and just it didn't add anything to me. It was just like, okay, we get it. You had a sci-fi budget. You got some visual effects from 1997. Now can we just actually get into the story? That is all. Amanda?
Gary keeping us grounded.
I really do like the intro. Sorry, Gary. But I also, in this case, it's always dangerous to make something take too long, but because of the length of the intro, I thought they did a good job of just showing it, because it keeps going every time you think, okay, yep, the galaxy, okay, we're done. No, it keeps going further. Like it lasted just long enough to really show you the scale in terms of like just how much there is, and then it kept going a little further past that. Like, I was sitting there watching it and keeping going, and I was like, I mean, we all know the universe is big, duh. It's like a simple fact of life, but it's when you see those scale, it's sometimes it took so long to go through it that it was a good illustration of just how big.
I want to specifically disagree with Gary, in that.
Is that a button somewhere you can click?
Right.
Ooh, that should be my sign. I specifically disagree with Gary. I want that sign. But I think the opening scene is fantastic for what the purpose of the movie is, and that is, hey, if there's no one else out there, that'd be a heck of an empty waste. And I mean, us looking up, like what JC said, yeah, it kind of seems, sure, it's big, but you don't understand the scale of it, just how much space is out there. And I think the purpose of that was to show you just how much space is out there. You can imagine the Earth. You can imagine the solar system. You can even imagine the Milky Way. it's very difficult to imagine groups of Milky Ways, groups of galaxies, and then clusters of galaxies, and then super clusters of it's like trying to imagine infinity. You can't do it.
Mhm.
Do you feel like the intro was designed for a cinema or for home VHS watching?
Okay, you got me on that. I do not know enough about anything.
Well, like, think about this
anything
movie,
theater
but in
related.
VHS quality when it came out. Like, I think maybe that's the difference. In cinema, it would be grand and magnificent, and on tape, it would be very, very dumbed down. So maybe it works both in those mediums. But in DVD quality on a 4K TV, it just felt underwhelming. It was neither wowing or like grainy enough to feel classic.
It
So that's
opened
fair.
in
That's fair.
1997 to
97.
$20,500,000, ranking second place only behind Men in Black. So it did
Honestly, I was
pretty
thinking
well in
about
the
Men in
theaters.
Black as a comparison point for the scale thing, because Men in Black also has moments where you're looking at our Earth and it scales back, and you're
Correct.
looking at a galaxy, and then it's a cat necklace that turns out to be a marble.
Yes.
Men in
Spoiler
Black
alert
did
for
it
Men in
better.
Black, 1997. No, but that was going to be my point, is that it does it in a real quick thing. It's like almost a joke. It goes, zoom, and you're back and you're at the Milky Way. And it's like, it's happened so quickly that you can't appreciate the scale. Like, it is a
Mhm.
different thing whenever you take that time and build up and you are looking at it at a more elongated rate. Like, it gives you time to sit there and think. And I think whether they intended it for cinema or not, it's what you're making is just what you're making. Like, you're making a film, you're making it at the resolution of film. I would be shocked if anybody in making cinema in 1990 anything was like, this is gonna look killer on the VHS. We got to make sure this looks baller as hell on the VHS. Like,
Right,
they're
right.
making a movie. I mean, they're making yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things, like, they're gonna sit there and they know that there's a captive audience sitting in a seat that they want to have this moment last long enough that they can start ruminating on it and thinking about it. And I mean, my notes are that, I love the frequency bombardment and how it's getting older and this is great. And then, like, the next note is like, all right, I already have existential dread just moments into this movie. Like, it's just takes you, the length that lets you actually sit there and think about what you're experiencing. And even if the quality doesn't hold up because of DVD or something, then get the 4K Blu-ray, man. I don't know. it's a film. It is at a quality that probably holds up, and the concept is still there regardless of anything. Yeah.
I really like the concept. I'm glad you all brought this up too. I'm sorry I glazed over it. I feel remiss now. The concept of it too, I think, in hearing what everybody's talking about too, is like movies like Men in Black or other space focused sci-fi movies of the time were kind of focused on like the inhabitants. I feel like Men in Black obviously is very focused on who else is out there. Whereas I think that opening scene, the concept is really focused on the space, the enormity of space, right? In all directions, how far out it goes. And I think Steven mentioned infinity. As far as we can tell, it goes on forever. And I think dread is a good way to look at it, JC. Just talking about how insignificant we are, and hearing Steven that Sagan's comments do focus a lot on how small we are and insignificant, which ties into parts in the movie as well. I thought that was really good. Good feedback.
So obviously Nick has seen this movie. How many other people had seen it before?
Yes, that's another question I had.
I know I know of the ending. Like, that is the part I distinctly remember of the very end when they talk about the camera footage and stuff like that. I remembered that part, but anything before that, I could not tell you anything about it.
Oh.
The reason I asked
was
is
under
because
the
I
impression-
actually realized I had seen this movie before, and I had completely forgot about it because I'm
I
sure I
think
saw it
that's-
when I was 10, and I was like, "This is weird. Like, it's not inspirational. It's just weird."
I'm not sure Amanda had the weird reaction, but I know Amanda had that same thing when she started watching it. She went, I've seen this thing before. I've seen this movie. And I know I knew I had seen it, but there was a lot of it that I had forgotten because I hadn't seen it in a very long time.
Yeah, I didn't have like reactions of like, oh, I know what's gonna happen. No, I had a lot of scenes where I was like, oh, I've seen this scene. Like, I had a lot of disjointed scenes that As soon as I got there, I was like, yep, this for sure. Like the end, the scene where they're on the beach, absolutely remember that one for sure. But there was a lot of scenes where I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I did not remember the story at all. I could not have told you, guessed the story other than looking at the title and the quick glance at IMDb before I hit to make sure I was looking at the right. After the debate we had, to make sure I was looking at the right movie, since there was some concern.
JC, you didn't raise your hand. Had you seen this before?
I was under the impression if you'd have like asked me, have you seen the movie Contact? Then with Jodie Foster, I'd be like, yeah, I think probably I watched it a while ago. But then I was watching the scenes and like none of it seemed familiar.
Huh?
Like the only thing I really remembered was the scene where she eventually is running towards the medicine cabinet and it does the flip shot.
Mhm.
Like that, I've seen like breakdowns of that scene and the SFX on it. But
One of the
beyond
first times
that,
they like hid the camera, right? Yeah.
mhm.
Cool.
Yep.
Good question. Good question. Yes. So young Ellie Arroway, very scientific from the start. You get the understanding between her and her dad that she's on a ham radio, trying to see how far away they'd contact each other, and then big setup for later in the movie. She's reached all the way down to Pensacola, Florida, and she draws a nice picture of like what she believes Pensacola to look like in her mind. Very warm, palm trees, sandy beaches, and all that. As she's talking with her dad in her room, you understand that her mom has passed, which is a big part of character foreshadowing and understanding as well. This movie, one of my first questions talks a lot about how I'm building to here, talks a lot about how like there's a juxtaposition I think that this movie explores or at least nudges on between the characters who are very faith centered and the characters who are very science centered. And one of my first questions for you all was there anybody who in their pursuit of truth you felt you related to? I feel like there's a lot of people who have really good points in their discussion because there's some people who say something and you can tell that they're coming from, I'm against religion, science, and Ellie will say something. I'm like, that's a damn good point. That makes a lot of sense to me. But at the same time, there's some things that's like you can't explain everything because we don't know everything. Maybe it's just a theory. And I'm not trying to get into any political beliefs or like actual religiosity that people are right or wrong. But I was just curious if there's anything that
Well, I am. So.
if there's anything anyone resonated with. Gary, you got
I
your hand up
resonated
first.
with the main character. However, I did make a note that I felt like this movie is very like religious in your face, but in a like in a very like ha we got you motherfucker, because it's like, oh,
Jeez.
she doesn't believe in religion and she has a good reason to, and she does this, and then she's in a situation where she has to make people believe and they don't believe her because she has no proof. And so it's like, aha, I got you, motherfucker. And I was like, just calm the fuck down with your moral compass here, Mr. Movie. But anyway,
Jeez.
Steven?
Okay. I was going to say that it's hard to top that. Holy cow.
Good luck following that one.
I'm not sure I specifically vibed with anyone in the movie or in that sense. Palmer Joss and both Ellie, I had kind of a affinity to, but I mean that's the point of the movie too, is you're supposed to like them. So yeah, but even in the book they are similar, and I still enjoyed their ideas in the same way. I think that a lot of the idea of this movie is the search for truth, not necessarily the search necessarily for God or for science. It's the search for truth, and how can you make people believe the truth as how you see it, as you believe it. And there are, I think that both the character of Palmer Joss and the character of Ellie are very good at expressing. I would say Ellie's even probably more radical, but Palmer Joss is very good at expressing the idea of a theological search for truth that is more something that's not going to we're talking about existentialism, not going to existentially violate humanity. It's not going to make you insignificant or make you. He has that book later on in thing. Lose meaning through technology. His big thing is, what is meaning? What is the truth? And how do you get from the truth? Do you get meaning for your life and make your life better? How do you make your life better? Ellie is very much science oriented. Ellie is very much, if you build it, they will come, in a funny way of putting it. But it's science is going to provide the answers, and if you don't like the answers, well, then doesn't matter. That's what the answers are. And I empathize with that view because I am very, I believe myself at least to be very scientific outlooking, but I think Palmer Joss's view is probably the more nuanced in the book, and something that if I had to pick between Ellie and Palmer Joss, I would probably pick Palmer Joss.
Yeah, there's a lot of things with Palmer's viewpoints, especially on technology and stuff, that I really vibe with. It was almost a little surprising to hear from 1997, so probably recorded earlier, of all the different things about, like, oh man, we're more technologically connected than ever, but we're lonelier than ever. Just like all these things that are still true today and still problems today. And so it was kind of stark to hear things like that. So all that stuff I really vibe with. But I am also, belief-wise, more in line with Ellie. However, I'd say that, like, I share a lot of her approach towards religion, but I don't come away with, well, I haven't seen the proof, so doesn't exist. I'm just agnostic. Like, I'm just out there, like, I don't know. I can't say definitively either way. And she seems to take a more hard stance to it, which I feel, given her past, is her using science as an excuse to have a disbelief for God that she just feels wronged by. And I could certainly see that take, but yeah, it's as someone who has struggled with that as well. It's
overly exaggerated, her disbelief in faith, or like her almost like such disbelief that she's like has no respect for people who believe that. Like, I thought it was a little heavy-handed.
As someone who has lost people very close to them at young ages, no, I do not think that is too heavy-handed in the movie. I'll put it that way.
I was gonna say as well, I'm pretty confident that I know people exactly like that, that are very science focused, and they are, unfortunately, as you become very confident in your belief about something, you become very intolerant in your belief about other things. And it's just a truism. The hardest people's minds to change are the most educated people in the world. It's a very difficult thing. It's just how humans work. So I very much believe that is a characterization.
I was going to chime in as well. Yeah, there's a lot about the characters, and again, it might just be the director's choice or the actor's choice in the way it's presented. I do agree that I think that Ellie seems very set that this is how the world works, and her personal truth and her beliefs are. I do feel that she was wronged. I have a line in here later, at the funeral scene when she's young, that I had a question for you all on. And it's definitely something that she has, that her takeaway from her life at a very young age and what has formed her into the person she is, that this is what I believe, and almost not detriment, but like to a more of a concrete resolution. This is how she feels. But then, to Gary's point about like how it's very in your face, ha ha ha. I feel like she's almost that way, that she thinks that, the rest of the 95% of the world is delusional, and it can be an unknown variable that perhaps they are, but to assert that they are is more preachy to me than some of the undertones for the religious side of this. I think that Palmer does a good job of asking questions and trying to be like, what is truth, and like, what does it mean to you, and what would you say about this? And I think Palmer does a good job of saying, this is what I believe, and I'm a person of faith. But clearly, he has his own doubts. Like he even says in the beginning scenes when he's introduced, he's like, I couldn't do the celibacy thing. Like there's some things that he's going to bend on as far as what religion and faith means to him. So I think that there's nuance in a lot of the characters' roles and how they talk about things back and forth. But it's interesting to see them grow overall. I was going to say to Gary's point about haha in your face. I don't think it's so much as religion wins. I think it ends with the hope that there's humility. We're kind of jumping to the very end, but I think that there's a couple lines that Ellie has about that we can all feel that hope and that humility, that there's some things out there that we don't know, and whether it's science or it's something else, I think it's interesting to pursue it. Casey.
Speaking to kind of Steven's point of like that you can become so engrossed in an idea, you start to become intolerant of the others. The skeptic community as a whole kind of has a lot of issues with that, especially probably even around the early 2000s. There was a rise in skepticism as almost a movement. And that also ended up being this thing that like, it wasn't the idea of skepticism as, oh, we should question things before we make a decision on them. It was, nah, if you believe something, you're wrong, because you should be always questioning. Like, you can still question something and then come to a conclusion where you believe in an answer. And so, yeah, that's Ellie's character is such a diehard skeptic with a lot of things. It just kind of fits that narrative as well. Amanda?
You guys all had some really good points. I ended up admiring Ellie an awful lot in this show, and I think that's a good point about the skeptics. Stephen had a good point about like kind of the more certain you are about this, the more intolerant you are. But I actually was trying to categorize Ellie's like, because sometimes we assume that the more educated you are, the more like unfeeling or a little colder maybe. Not quite, that's probably a little too harsh. But like she did an admirable job of like she would feel these feelings, and then I really admired how she was able to walk it back and still like we would see things where like she didn't what's that guy, what was his name, Drumlin, where the numerous times he screwed her over, and she would have had every like not right I guess, but she would walk back her feelings and still like she was able to warn him about the stuff that is happening. On the other hand, I actually thought Palmer was being a little bit hypocritical because he was expecting her. It felt like he was trying to make too much of a point in terms of he wanted her to understand like everyone else has this. Like he was acting like she was being so brittle, but he was doing the same thing. Like he wasn't considering hers. He was okay if she did anything else, but her point of view, it doesn't count as that in that case. And he didn't hesitate at one point to use that to force his view upon her. He did end up coming to terms with that later on, which I appreciate. But he didn't hesitate to ask her to push his. Go ahead, Nick.
You're good. Yeah, people's belief systems or what they've got a conviction on becomes a cornerstone of who they are. And so, especially in something where there are unknowables or things that haven't been decided or determined yet, or a general, social consensus, it feels like you're attacking that person. And so, I've experienced this. I'm sure everyone else has too. Sometimes when you're defending your belief systems or your point of view, if somebody disagrees with it, they might not be intentionally attacking, but it feels like you're defending yourself sometimes. And so those can be very brittle encounters. Those can be very demoralizing if you find that there's a gap in something. I forget who it was, but one of you just mentioned a really good point that made me think of a statement that I have in one of the books that I like to go back to. It probably sounds a little presumptuous, but an Aristotle quote that I really like from Aristotle is, "It's the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it." Like you can hear something and contemplate it and discuss it. It doesn't mean that I'm agreeing to what your new paradigm is. It just means it's something, oh, interesting, I'll consider it. And I think that that's something that, especially, these days is lacking civility or an understanding to come to what is truth. What does it mean? Can I easily discuss what my convictions are? without feeling like I'm being attacked, and detach myself from it so that I can hear what you have to say and consider other viewpoints without necessarily feeling like I have to always defend me because I'm infallible, right? Good discussion. Anything else? Go ahead.
I'm curious what your question about the funeral was, because I had a thought at one point during it.
If you've got it now, we can jump to it. Otherwise, I was going to go through a little bit of the chronological order.
I'm good, either way.
Okay. I'll jump through it a little bit here. We'll get to it. There wasn't a whole lot in that first scene. We just kind of get a little bit of exposition about who Ellie is and her father. And then we jump to an older Ellie who has now gone on to work for SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and she is in San Juan, Puerto Rico at Mount Arecibo, which is a gigantic satellite dish. And
Real quick
Center.
before we move on from Mount Arecibo, I did want to note it's depressing to see that in it's such a nice state. If you look at the pictures of Mount Arecibo anymore, it is overgrown, destroyed. They're not fixing it. They decommissioned it in 2020 after 2 cables snapped. And so,
What?
unfortunately, you will never be able to see Mount Arecibo or the Arecibo Observatory like that. It is.
Yeah.
Oh.
I looked it
Yeah.
up too because I was curious about it, and it was a little depressing because it was just not that long ago, relatively.
Well, I knew it had been decommissioned, so I had to look for it as well because I saw it and I went, "Oh, that hits my heartstrings as soon as I see it."
Yeah, same.
Is that giant dish in the ground?
Yes.
Yep.
So some cables snapped and they had to
they-
give up the whole thing?
That giant
Well, they were
metal
planning
thing.
to decommission it. Yeah. And they were going to do a controlled demolition, but before that demolition actually was carried out, the cables snapped. It's a kind of a fascinating engineering thing. There was a bunch of zinc metal corrosion that was at an accelerated pace, but yeah, the cable snapped and the whole dish just came down and took a bunch of stuff with it.
Oh shoot!
There was because it was planned to decommission stuff. There was full drone footage up and everything. So there's a lot of fascinating
was
camera
there?
angles of
That I
watch
didn't
this
know.
giant thing. Oh yeah, yep. Well, check out the Arecibo collapse videos.
So basically, when it fell, it destroyed part of the infrastructure, so they couldn't save any part of the infrastructure and rebuild. It destroyed.
Dude.
Oh.
Yeah, it slammed into the concrete and padding beneath, and yeah, lots of damage.
Huh.
And especially since it was already going to be kind of decommissioned anyway, then they were just well, leave it be. So
There is a museum there, I'm pretty sure still, but it's they are not repairing it. If you look at the actual Mount Arecibo bowl itself, there's grass growing everywhere. You can see tiles missing. It looks like something out of Fallout.
Brilliant, Steven. That would be a great next location in a Fallout game.
I was going to comment how, when they got to that part there, I just had a strong reminder of oh yeah, that's right. This kind of feels like a scene out of GoldenEye for the giant satellite in that movie.
I had a feeling you would
filmed
tie
that
it
Arecibo, right?
I was going to quickly
What
look
year was
that up.
GoldenEye from?
Is that the same scene?
I think it is the same place, but could be wrong.
What'd you say, Gary?
What year was GoldenEye from? Because yeah, I also thought of GoldenEye, but
GoldenEye was earlier, I think.
felt smart. I felt like I was gonna fuck it up, so I didn't reference it.
I'll look that up, but you can keep going, Nick.
All right, you're good. Yeah, well, I was just going to mention a little bit on that scene. We get to understand that Ellie has pursued many accomplishments in her young years. Now at Mount Arecibo, she's looking for signs of extraterrestrial life. She has a little map on her wall of where her first pin mark was of where she searched, and we see a fast forward then that she's been there a couple of years, and we see dozens of pins in the wall. So she's been doing this for some time, listening for any signs of extraterrestrial intelligence out there, and just searching different stations. And we're introduced as she's doing this work, trying to pursue her own dreams. We're introduced to the character David Drumlin, who is her supervisor, who has come down to review the space. And we find out he actually has plans to shut down their work. He thinks that it's fruitless and that there's nothing out there. And I'll turn it over to you two, but I was going to say basically his view is he's introduced with either you're right and we'll never find it because the universe is so immense, or he says there is and it's so advanced, or you're wrong and you'll never find anything. And either way, that's not something that we're willing to put the resources to, or your time should be better spent elsewhere. Basically, just shutting her down on the spot. Even
I think that's an incredibly, I have that exact same note. It's an incredibly important debate within the scientific community, the debate between practical science and, as Ellie put it, just pure theoretical science. Um, and I had notes in here because I just finished reading Hidden Figures, which is the story of some of the women who, specifically the black women who worked on the NASA and I guess faster than sound airplanes. But one of the things that came out of that was just the idea that this debate that she's having with David Drumlin is not a new debate. Like David Drumlin says science must be practical and have practical reasoning behind it. If you are researching something, we need a tangible benefit from it. And that was reminiscent of the NASA debates, which my immediate thought when I guess before reading the book that I had read, was that the animus against NASA and the animus against this theoretical science in space is more new, and it's more something that's people have forgotten the amazing adventure that space exploration could be. And in 2020, and this one, 1997, people had forgotten about it, so they're trying to defund it. No, actually, the last two Apollo missions were nearly canceled because after we landed on the moon, we beat the Soviets. There was no other reason to do it, and the government considered it a really expensive boondoggle. And so it's maybe a statement
What is
that
the
it is
boondoggle?
it's a dog that walks on the boons.
he's not wrong.
It's
Get along, boondoggle.
something that a mess, a
It's a
quagmire,
kerfuffle.
Fruitless endeavor.
kerfluffle. Yes. And these debates have been going on forever in the scientific community, and it's really kind of nice of us to see that happening in this movie and go, oh, look at him, he's so out of it, he doesn't understand the reality. But that's the reality in truth coming from the government, especially nowadays, where if your science doesn't have a practical moneyed effect to it, why are we even going to try it? And it's a little unfortunate, I would say, because science for science sake isn't necessarily bad. It's not. It leads to incredible advances that you never would have expected. For instance, GPS.
I had a thought on that too. It's not here, and again, I'm sorry, I am jumping around a little bit, trying to keep us chronologically. But Ellie has that very same line later where she's like, "There's a couple of these really crazy people who wanted to invent an airplane and fly around the world, right?" And he talks about all the other medical advances and technological advances that were people who just had crazy, unbelievable dreams, but pursued them and were able to make these wonderful advances for society. Yeah, 100%. Um, so keep us going here. There's obviously some animosity right off the bat between David Drumlin and Ellie, the main character. I also had down that when she's at Mount Arecibo, she bumps into Palmer Josh, is another character. Josh is another character who's introduced, who's Matthew McConaughey's character. Um, right off the bat, he seems like he's not someone who's very serious. He's, I think, got like a Hawaiian t-shirt on and flip-flops, and he's eating Cracker Jacks and pulls out, he's got a small little, a compass is the Cracker Jack puzzle he has. And right off the bat, just starts talking to Ellie a little bit about what her understanding of truth is, and what is she doing up there. And at first he kind of comes off as like maybe he's with the press or something because he's asking her what work they're doing, but then later on at an evening party it comes out that he's actually a man of faith. Talks a little bit more with Ellie about what his views are, and they start a small, seemingly just kind of like fling relationship. But they're having a communication later while they're just laying in the bed talking to each other, and he gifts her his compass, as a token of just like something for her about trying to find or pursue your dreams or pursue truth, which is just a cute little kind of quaint thing, but actually becomes foreshadowing later on. Story. So here's the flashback. Then there's a little bit of a flashback at this point in the movie where we talk about Ellie's backstory,
Nick,
and we find out. Oh, sorry. Did you have something?
you were talking about the fling relationship.
Yeah, go for it.
I guess we get. I don't know if we're going to talk about that relationship later, but I thought it was confusing
Did
because
it come on too quick?
essentially,
I'll agree with that.
Yeah,
I thought it came on too quick. I thought it was overdone. I thought it was. I didn't like
he
it.
made a note of her that she left his phone number in Puerto Rico, but yet, so like she just like ghosted him in the current dalliance. However, they see each other years later, and it's almost as like he's just completely forgiven that she just like fucking disappeared. Like, not even a call, be like, hey, I got fired. I gotta go back. I gotta move away. Sorry, nice to meet you. Whatever. Just like
It's not even that for
disappeared.
me. It's the
Vanished into the
stupid
wind.
pickup lines that he has. It's the way that basically the reason why she sleeps with him is because he says, well, if it's not, there's a lot of wasted space. It's like, my dad said that. I'm gonna sleep with you. That's I get it. It's maybe
Yes.
it's too on the nose. Way too on the nose.
That line is way too. That line was. There's a running joke that just kind of became a headbanger against the wall.
I loved it. It's only done 3 times. I counted because I knew it was such a prominent. Like watching this movie very analytically, like those little things I tried to make a note of. It's only said 3 times at the beginning
Yeah,
by
I
her
don't
dad.
think it was said
then
too much.
and
I
at
just
the
said
end.
in that scenario though, that like
That part I'd agree on. Like, I liked the line. The fact that he said it in like the exact same way, I was like, you make me want to have my own conspiracy theory here that you're all aliens in her head right now. Like,
Could be. It's the Matrix. I blame Matthew McConaughey and his swarthiness.
I don't know. Yeah, I just didn't feel like they were a believable couple or any believable intimacy between them. It felt very, very like acquaintance, like just what I don't know if it's the actors or the writing. I blamed on the writing, not on the actors, because the actors are good. I just think they just were poorly written.
I think that so I am going to bring in the book here a little bit. I think one of the issues with the character of Palmer Joss in this movie is that it's a combination of 2 different characters in the book, one being Palmer Joss and the second actually being Ellie's romance interest for the majority of the book. And they are diametrically opposite characters in the book, and I couldn't verify this because I didn't read through the entire book again, but I am almost certain that Ellie does not have a fling with Palmer Joss in the book because they are just 2 separate, and it's just two people looking for the truth, and that's the wonder about those 2 characters in the book is they're 2 people looking for the truth, and that's what you get out of a lot of the movie. But then they kind of hamstring in like, oh well, we got rid of her love interest, and she's a woman, she needs to have a love interest. Let's just ham this into that character, and I think it does the character of Palmer Joss in the movie a disservice because, like I said, I find the romance that they just train track us with just off-putting.
Go ahead, Gary.
I agree with Steven. I feel like that was a lot of the reason I got frustrated with this movie is that like they tried to keep running into each other throughout the story. Like they meet, they fling, they meet back up in Washington, and it turns out he's the decider of her fate, of her goal in life, like her greatest aspiration. Like he controls it. And then after near the end of the movie, they come back together and they become friends again. And it's just like, if you just cut that out, like, and maybe you could feel like it would help the movie a lot.
I agree, and I'm wondering if that may be I'm sorry, I definitely talked over someone there, and I don't know who I did, but I did talk over someone. I think that maybe that is and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe a issue of the time frame when this movie was filmed, if you had a strong female protagonist, she has to have a love interest.
Maybe. I'll concede that. I will concede that because I can see the points you're making. How many vowels in that sentence? There's a number of tension scenes in there where it's like, oh well, I believe this, and then he has the line, there's a lot of wasted space, and they kind of like look at each other, and I think it is a little sloppy to just be like, and if clearly there's an attraction, so they act on it. Like you can have in a relationship that's built on mutual appreciation for each other's intellect in those moments too, and make the characters have a greater respect for each other and discussion between each other that's deep and resonates without necessarily making it something that's very physical. I think that it would reward it more so if it happened later in the movie, and this was something that had just sort of been simmering between the two of them but never actually realized too. So I could see it came on a little quick. Gary, did you have some? Or?
I was a little confused in the beginning because I was a little conflicted. Like, obviously she ghosts him. That's generally just not really great. But on the other hand, she got fired. She's, as they put, homeless. What are they, like, she's in Puerto Rico. But also, like, this was one night, right? Like, it's not like they are dating or, like, even anything as formal as labels. So I was like, not cool to ghost, but like one night, it's not like she owes him everything. Obviously they had strong enough feelings to do that, but I don't, is it just a one night fling? So I agree. I don't think it was very strong. I also think Steven may have had a point. It was kind of inconceivable to not necessarily have a love interest for a woman lead at the time.
Tyler, did you have something?
I was just kind of going to agree with everyone there. It felt real weird of like they're talking there and all of a sudden hard cut to them two in bed, and I'm like, okay,
right?
And not that you can't have a one night stand or a fling with somebody you like just met, like it happens there, but like I just kind of fall back on that thing Steven meant too of like, well, this is the time period. You can't really have a strong female lead in your movies without her having somebody to connect with. We got Matthew McConaughey here, so there we go. And I do agree, like, had it been more of like not necessarily like the backdrop of them having a relationship with all the stuff kind of going on between them two throughout the movie, like I think it would have worked better had there not been any like romantic connections, at least right away, if maybe that was more saved towards the end where they hold hands and drive off into the sunset.
I don't know. To some extent, I did think that while it does move fast, I agree. But like when she starts off, like they go up to the observatory in the first place with her saying, "You want to get out of here?" And that was where I thought it like moved fast. I'm like, all right. And she didn't strike me as the type of person to just want to just go hang out with. I thought it was basically going to cut to the bed scene right there, and it didn't seem like her character from that point being very logical and analytical. But yeah, people are entitled to whatever they want. But then Matthew McConaughey's character, I don't know if it was intentional, but whenever she's talking about like, oh man, there's so many stars and look at this place, to me it looks like he's just zoned out and just like, I'll say whatever I need to at this point, because at that point we don't really know that he's like actually super insightful and going to be one of the top voices in the movie for beliefs.
Right.
And so I just thought he was just going to be this playboy island guy, essentially. And so then as soon as he hits that line, I thought, oh, this is just a clear move. And sure enough, it works. Then what struck me as moving fast was then they're just laying in bed right afterwards. And he's like, tell me about your dead dad.
Yeah,
like,
that was so
that is not quick.
That was
What
so
the fuck?
weird.
That
Oh
is,
my gosh.
That's
Whoa,
not a
buddy.
safe move.
Whoa, let's
Yes.
put the brakes on here. This is moving
Listen,
way.
Let
Maybe
me
if
tell
you
you
just
right
want
now,
to get to the exit, maybe that's the move. You just like, hey, I got what I needed.
I'm out.
Let's talk about something really uncomfortable where you're just like, you need
Your
to get the
dad.
fuck out now.
Like, yeah, listener, I don't know if you've ever been in a romantic relationship, but the last thing you should talk about when you're in bed with your significant other is that significant other's dad. Like, So, tell me about your dad.
Right.
What?
Oh goodness. Speaking of the dad, there's a flashback soon after that scene where we go back and find out that the dad actually passes away because of a heart condition, a heart attack. And
Your laughter here is just extra selling it. Yeah, by the
right, the heart attack. Anyways,
way.
and Ellie
Myocardial infarction.
and infarction, exactly. I had to go look that up because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what that means, but I had to go verify it.
Same.
And she says, "I'll get the medicine when he passes out." And she runs upstairs, and there's a famous scene where they hide the camera as she's running up the stairs in slow motion towards the door, and we realize we're the door handle or the mirror through the bathroom as she's running up to go get the medicine. And she makes a comment later on that we should have kept more medicine downstairs. Like, it was just so hard to get up there. And I really kind of felt like that was kind of tying back to what we were just saying. Their belief structures for these people that we learn at younger ages really solidify who we are at older ages. That she blames herself, I think, a little bit for her father's passing away, or at least to some degree feels some level of guilt. Gary, what's your hot take on this?
You're gonna be disappointed. Conspiracy theory number 1.
I am disappointed.
The distance between the medicine, and her dad is symbolism to how distant she is from the aliens in the end, and how she regrets that they couldn't be closer together. Something. I don't know.
That was deep. That was the deepest conspiracy theory I think we've ever had. I mean, it's no
There's
time
something
clone,
there.
but
Time clone. That was a good one.
so I do think it is. They do have the symbolism in here as well of the person who I'm pretty sure she tells we should have kept the medicine downstairs is the priest who was there,
Yep.
and the priest is saying, God has a plan for everyone. You can't know what the plan is going to be. You can't blame yourself because we don't know. It's ineffable. We don't know what the plan is. And her response to that is, I should have kept more medicine downstairs. And it is the belief of, hey, this is what God intended for it to happen versus the rationality of, I could have prevented it from happening if I had been better prepared. So I like that duality.
See, this is my point. I was curious about when Nick had mentioned this a while back, because I was like, "What the hell is he doing?"
He's talking to an impressionable young child and espousing
In a
theological
terrible
thoughts
way,
on her.
at
Terrible
the
way.
funeral of her last parent. And then, where the hell is he going? He just leaves. And I was like, I'm sorry, you have work to do.
He had his hand
Usually
sandwich.
at a
He's out.
funeral, the priest you invite him for lunch, and then he's got other shit to do.
Apparently, because he just left, and I was like, you just stopped, said that one thing to her, very much unhelpful, very unuseful, and bye. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was outraged, honestly. I was like, what the hell?
I think it's a polite thing. You're supposed to invite the priest for lunch, but like they can decline. But ultimately, you're giving them lunch for the goods and services exchange.
Yeah. Unwitnessed, there was a funeral service that they led, and then they have the home reception afterwards. And
Right. I was going to mention I was trying to think of how to word some of this. There's an interesting concept of so he's a priest, obviously leaning onto the faith side of it. There's an interesting theory, not like a concept, but just me espousing my understanding of this. Of if there is a supreme being, they're so immeasurable, omnipotent, whatever, omniscient, that they're hard to put into context for how we see the world. So we impose our own understanding of the world into things they may be doing to make it make sense to us. Like, I thought it was interesting. The pastor, I wrote down the whole line, Stephen, just like you had mentioned. He says sometimes we're not meant to know all the reasons why things happen the way they do. Sometimes we just have to accept it as God's will. And it's like, it to me, that's a cop-out. Like, well, I don't know why this happens, and it's such a terrible thing to have happen. Like, I can't give a good reason why your relatives are passed. Must just be God's will. And again, either God is infallible or God, just happened to need another angel or whatever you want to espouse in that. It to me, those sentences feel like a cop out. If God is omnipotent, they don't need anything, right? But we espouse this, trying to extend an olive leaf in these situations to people. I think it's the convention of it that this priest is trying to give to this young impressionable child. And really, in my understanding of this scene, Ellie takes it away as, well, then this is God's fault. God did this to me. And it's a big reason I feel she seems really jaded in her older years. My 2 cents. JC.
Yeah, it is a common convention of religious people who, at least of the Western faith that I'm familiar with, where that you have this very it's out of our hands mentality, and it's less that I feel like they're trying to impose a human emotion or human will to a deified plan, but more that if it's not according to a plan, if it's pure chaos, if it's pure anarchy, and people are just dying in the streets randomly, that's terrifying. That is chaos incarnate, and people are going to be screaming in the streets all day long. So like it's just trying to say like, hey, this is supposed to be comfort. This brings me comfort to think that there is a higher power, a higher plan, and I don't have to be concerned. My loved one that is now gone is in a better place because of this. That there are all these different layers of comfort that get added on. And so when a religious person tells you, hey, it's all part of a plan, we aren't meant to, that's not them trying to say like, hey, you don't need to take fault. It's more just saying like, hey, this brings me comfort. You can find comfort in this too. And being agnostic and going through something where people are offering you a lot of those condolences, and it's like, it's very hard to be pulled. You feel torn one way or the other, where you want to recoil in some sense of like, what sort of plan involves this? Because this sucks. This is a terrible plan. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have the moments of like, man, that does sound like a comforting thing. Like I could, if I just chose to embrace this, then now I would feel comfort as well. And boy, comfort sounds nice.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellie just, I think part of the reason that I read into him just turning away is that the way she says like, hey, I could have just kept things downstairs. One, that's an easy opposite side cop out where you find comfort in taking the blame yourself. It's a comfort feeling because it's not chaos. It's not disorder and randomness and anarchy in that sense. It is your own fault, and you can shoulder that blame, and you can beat yourself up for entire life that you could have done something different, even though you can't. Everyone that day who interacted with him, everyone that week, that month, that year, can be like, oh man, I should have done this. And they could, in whatever butterfly effect way, they can completely rationalize that, and they're right. Or they're wrong, depending on how you want to look at it. So it's very much a situation where her response to that is tells him that all he needs to know, that his comfort is not going to be her comfort. She's going to have to find her own path. Stephen?
Clarification, and then basically an agreement. Clarification is that as you die, if you die in Christian faith, you do not become an angel. Angels are a separate race than humans. There is no transitioning, so God can't call you because he wants another angel, because he still won't get another angel. Anyways, that being said, I do want to agree with basically everything JC said right there, and chalk it really up to human fallibility for the experience that Ellie has, because I think the priest did a shit job, to be completely honest. You don't, and it's obviously for the point of the movie that it does it,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't walk away from a kid looking like that. You don't let a kid just say that and just go, well, did my best.
It was the 90s.
It's the
Priests didn't
90s,
have to be
man.
Good in the
It was
90s.
the 90s.
There were no rules. Anyways,
No rules.
It was the 90s. That was the best thing the priest could have done with a young child.
Oh no.
Isn't gonna go there. How many years out of like caning children in private school was this movie? Like that's my theory. Like this was the 90s.
But the point more being though that it is there is a way to talk about that with kids that makes more sense, and there are people who can't do that, and that person obviously was someone who couldn't do that, and in the movie left her pretty dang jaded. Amanda?
Yeah, I'm just mad about the priest. Like you guys all said really good things, and I agree with most of that. I'm just mad at the priest because he did a bad job at the bad time, and like I've had those things said to me in those moments of like actual extreme grief, and everyone handles grief differently. But I'm
Mhm.
sorry, he did a terrible job because that was out of nowhere. There was nowhere context to it. You can say that. You can say those. It's not a bad thing to say, but it was the wrong time to say it. It was the wrong way to say it. And he said it to a kid and then left. If he knew her at all, he would have known that a better way to go about it. I didn't think she was listening to him, honestly. Like, you guys mentioned how you thought she took that and was like, I'm going to take that turn this other way. That's not an interesting, or that's an interesting thought. Also, that wasn't an interesting thought. Sorry. It's an interesting thought. I honestly took it as like she was not even aware that he may have said something interesting to her. She was just saying, "Oh, there's a person. This is what we should have done." As a priest, as someone who theoretically knows this kid, he should have known a little more what she was like. Choose your time. Choose your tone of voice. Don't leave the kid alone like that. And then also, like, she's gonna want. Well, she's probably going to want proof, but you could offer more arguments in support of it rather than just, here's my statement, bye, have fun with your grief.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm going to secede my spot to JC before I jump on conspiracy theory number 2.
Sure. I was gonna say in terms of like, oh, he knows this kid. He might not. I mean, she sounds like someone who probably doesn't go to church a lot. I mean, that was
It's fair.
certainly the priests that I've interacted with in my life have been at those events, and that's it. So, I mean, it's not necessarily that. In his sense, it may have just been like, oh well, I got the job to do this guy's funeral, and now I'm here at this lunch that I was invited to, and hey, kid.
In that
gonna be
case, he did
alright.
a worse job.
He's also
Yeah,
the local youth
but, I
pastor.
Yeah.
Yeah, not saying that like, oh well, his shit job was excusable, but like it is yeah, perhaps worse job than if he didn't know her at all going into this situation. But yeah,
I'll
Okay.
concede to
'Cause-
Nick before I pour gasoline on the fire.
Mine's short, Gary. Again, like JC mentioned, not giving an excuse for the pastor, but also too, since we've mentioned this is the 90s, there's not a lot of thought to mental health back then either, right? So maybe it's just kind of like, well, they're a kid. Kids are resilient. I'll just say something and kind of move on. Whereas now we at least have a little bit more understanding or discussion of like how rough is that kid going through things right now, right? Like there's all the logistics of who does she live with now, or what other relatives may she have, aunt, uncle, whomever, grandparents. Like there's the adult logistical side of those types of situations when those life events occur, but the psychological trauma that especially a younger individual might be going through that is probably just not focused on too. So that was an interesting thought that I just came up with. All right, Gary, burn her down.
Conspiracy theory number 2. Ellie's dad is in fact a very bad dad. He's probably an alcoholic. He's not a very good or responsible parent after his wife died. He tells her to go to bed and she gets up and just says like, I'm going to keep doing what I want cuz you can't control me. And that's why the priest said like, do you know what, it's God's will, because he's an alcoholic and you'll be better off with a relative.
Gosh.
You watched the movie Contact, right, Gary? Not Contract.
No, I feel like the context you get of the dad is 2 scenes. You get the scene where he's like explaining ham radio, and then you get the scene where he dies of a heart attack. And this last scene is a complete fabrication based on a third party using his likeness to tell a message.
But nothing
I-
in the earlier scenes, though, indicate he's a terrible person. He's a caring person there, talking to his daughter about ham radios and people in Florida and all of this stuff. Like, nothing even comes close to presenting that he's a bad dad. It's almost like he's the idyllic single parent there in movies where it's like, this is a great guy. He's going to die, though, but... Nick?
Trolling Gary's gonna troll, so I know that there's a level of grain of salt with this.
Yeah.
But I do have to make a quick comment too. Jumping to the very end, not giving away that whole scene, but he's very kind in that last scene, and they like it only on the context of they are reading her memories of him. The fact that they embrace and he seems kind, the aliens would have no idea if that's him or not him, other than what they've read of him in her mind. So that's not true. He is a very kind father. If
I would say
if he was a terrible person, if he was a terrible person and they met and she was like, God, get away from me, you again, then I would say there's some understanding to that conversation.
I would
But
say
he
that
seems
he's
happy
not
to
a
see
very
it.
responsible parent because his daughter thought it was her responsibility to make sure he took his heart medication. Like
Yeah,
he's
and I think
not-
it's my
obviously,
responsibility
he's
to check up on my
she
mom,
became a
who lives, like-
caregiver to her dad before he died. That's my theory. My conspiracy theory is that she became a caregiver for her dad, and then her dad died.
So is
And
this
the
like
priest was like, "You're better off now,
Jeez
motherfucker."
Louise.
is this like a third conspiracy theory now that you've spun out of the second conspiracy theory? Do we not have to count this one here? Or?
We don't have to count
Dark
it.
web.
It's all
Okay.
part of the pyramid of conspiracy theory number 2.
The Illuminati will come once more.
Okay, did anyone not think it was weird that a child would A, know where your dad's heart medication is, and B, feel responsible
No.
to like
Oh,
I don't feel like it seems like overkill that your kid has to not even know that you need heart medication, but knows that she needs to
He's
get
a
it to you
single
in an emergency.
dad.
No, that's
she's a
that's
single
Yeah.
dad. Of course she's gonna know because she's the last line of defense. If something happens.
If it's just the two of them, especially, they've got a bond between the two of them that they want to help each other. Especially if she realizes that there is a finality to life because her mom is gone. She's going to want to do everything she can, especially if she knows her dad has heart issues or has pain, and this is what my dad does to help him. She's going to lock that in. This is what I got to do.
She
if
thinks
he's
her
having
mom
an
is
issue.
still reachable via the ham radio.
Not really, though. I mean, she's just.
When
She
her
seems-
dad
That was-
dies, she tries to
That
call
was a
him
plot
on the ham
point
radio.
to make you aware that her mom was dead. There was nothing else
No.
involved. in it.
At the funeral, she goes upstairs and like tries to
She
call
does, she
her
does.
dad on the ham
You're right.
radio.
Yeah.
So it is
I-
a belief that she has that she
I-
could communicate with her mom via ham radio.
I
At
think
that
she's
age.
just grasping onto anything at that point. Like she's
I
a
th- I-
broke. She's an
yeah.
unfortunately a 9-year-old broken girl who lost
Yeah.
both of her parents and was consoled by the worst priest on the face of, probably the 5th worst priest on the face of the planet.
I think there's
She's
an
just
innocent.
she's latching on to the last thing that her dad really loved and did with her, and I don't know, man. This seems heartless.
She's got enough of an understanding, more than most 9-year-olds by far, of how the world works that she's intelligent enough to know what this machine should do. But again, as we saw from the very first time we meet her, she's just reaching out. CQ, is anybody out there? She's just kind of reaching out to see who is there. I don't think she expects to hear her mom, but she's just young. She's, like Steven said, broken in that moment and just wanting to hear some sort of, like JC was saying, some sort of comfort, some sort of solace to get something back. So I think she's just, is anyone out there? Mom, are you there? Dad, are you there? Just
Anyway,
looking for someone.
The reason I knew it, I let two
Heartless.
different people finish their
You did.
points in the constructive part of the episode before I threw gasoline on the fire. So I knew it was going to be controversial, but I still
No, I
stand
will
by
say
it as a possibility in an alternate
supporting
universe.
Supporting Gary is somewhat not going fully down the rabbit
dark
hole,
road.
but I did have the thought that like it's almost I wonder how her thoughts would be had she gotten to the age of like 14, 15 and the rebellious teenage years before this heart
sure.
attack happened. She lost him in the still like daddy's girl 10-year-old phase, and so at that age at some point. Who knows? And then like, no, my dad was such an asshole. I hated my dad so much. Then he just dies and leaves me alone. Like, who knows? But she at least got to have that idolized, perfectly idealized 10-year-old picture of him for all time. I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it, that she was trying to reach her mom on the radio. But if someone grows up thinking that the dead people go to heaven and they're just up there and heaven is a place, maybe you do think, oh, if you can reach a signal to space, then heaven must just be beyond that. So maybe we can reach them. So maybe there was a bit more religious aspect to her upbringing than we considered based on that.
I mean, there's enough. Sorry, go ahead. I mean, I didn't mean to jump in front of you.
Mine's a little different, so you go first.
I was going to say there's enough of a religious tone that they're in Wisconsin in the 90s, so they seem very rural with where they are. I don't think they're like deep
We've
in
mentioned it before, but like
Madison.
the death is like 1974 or something like that.
No, sure.
Mid
Even more
70s
so.
is when, so.
I mean, it might just be the convention, like we talked about, but I mean, some families have a death in the family, and they're just like, all right, we'll take care of it ourselves and not have family over for the conventional wake, or like we said, there's the presumption that there was a service, and this is the after gathering. Maybe there was some sort of this is the pastor who always comes and talks to the family, and we at least, even if he is kind of weird and creepy and detached from the kids, like this is the person that she recognizes as the pastor for the family. I think there's a lot of reading into it there. Yeah. There's a lot of reading into it there because we don't know that exposition. But yeah, maybe this is they do have at least some understanding of religion, and like JC said, she's trying to reach heaven, even if it is an abstract.
I did wonder if they were in the country a little bit, just because they had the telescope set up on the balcony, and I was like, if you're in a city, you ain't seeing nothing.
Yeah.
That's not true.
But, well, not that great of stuff.
That's not true.
More so these days.
It's 1974. There weren't as many satellites.
No, I mean, I in El Paso, I was able to see stuff from my satellites, and we'd go to, like, if you had just a semi-dark, it didn't even have to be super dark. It's just like just a couple things around you. Telescope's still going to do fine. You're not going to be able to visually see it like with your eyes, but
I mean, I won't argue because I'm really not an expert.
With their eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing I'm looking from the fact that I can't see stars unless I go out of town as much. But anyhow, my real point was more of a fun fact tacked on to Gary's gasoline fire there. When the guy who plays her dad in this, I recognize the actor because he plays in a show that Steven and I like a lot. So he showed up and I was like, oh, it's George Washington. So Gary over here's conspiracy theory being that he's an alcoholic and a bad dad. I was like, he just called George Washington an alcoholic, and just the things just don't connect for me, and I just couldn't stop laughing at first. I had to mute myself because you were like going on about half cheerful, and I was like, because the entire movie it was such a strong resemblance. I was like, oh, George Washington's back again. Could not remember the guy's name.
David
I guess
Morse.
he's dad.
Yeah, my comment to her back on that was that they never cast this character to play anyone without some sort of gravitas and some sort of moral authority to him. Mm-hmm. He was on House, he was on John Adams, he was on this. I'm sure he's been on other stuff, but
Green Mile, The Rock.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, Green Mile. That's a
The
good
Rock's
Rock,
the movie,
The
not
Rock.
the actor.
Ooh,
yes.
The Rock. The
he
Rock's
was
another
great
one.
in The
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was a fun fact. I'm not gonna argue with it because like you do have good points. I don't think they're correct, but they are good points and possible. And I'm just gonna leave the gasoline fire there and let it burn out rather than throwing more fuel on it.
Shine on, you crazy diamond. He is very paternal. Yeah, all those movies that you just mentioned, he's someone with authority, like you said. I hadn't thought of it. Again, yeah, what I was mentioning before we started recording, how it's interesting, all these characters that you've like, some of us have seen this movie before, and then you go back and watch it when you're older, and you're like, oh, that's this person from this person, this, and there's like all these different, actors
There was
stand out.
plenty of them in here, even when I went to check a couple of them, because I was like, I know their face. Like one of them was just as the child, and it was Jenna Malone, and I was like, oh, because I know her as the adult. I didn't think of her as like.
Oh.
I can see Steven's confused face because he doesn't know who I'm talking about. Go ahead, Gary.
There was an actor, and it's one of the scientists from the research station who I know specifically from Starship Troopers. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, "That's the
Jake Busey.
scientist from Starship Troopers."
Oh no.
I know who you're talking about.
He's a guy on a TV show in Starship Troopers. Is like a smart bug. I find that idea infuriating.
That's the.
It's he's Davo.
I think you're
In
making
this
that up.
movie. That's a guy's IMDb says he's Davo. Timothy McNeil.
I am immediately looking this up.
Yeah.
Known for
Go
Starship
look
Troopers,
for a clip
1997.
of Timothy McNeil from
Credited
Starship
as
Troopers, and you'll be like,
expert.
"That's the guy."
Oh yeah.
Stephen, Jenna Malone played in Hunger Games. She was.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't even remember her name. She's the girl the famous
the crazy
elevator
girl who
scene.
gets naked in the elevator.
Oh, yeah, the one who lost her marbles because she won.
Interesting.
Okay, we might have to watch Hunger Games next for one of these seasons. Anyhow.
Anywho, so yeah, interesting. A lot of really good takes. Yeah, I had a number of both questions and comments as I was watching this movie. It's interesting too. Some of the plot points and the discussions about these themes too. Also watching, a rewatch as an adult, you understand more of like where the characters are coming from and like trying to understand what they're trying to relay in their theologies and their belief structures. It's interesting how the different characters express that. Again, I don't know if it's part of the writing or part of the portrayal or the line deliverance, but it's interesting. All right, so going back to the story, Ellie finds that her job has been canned. She's trying to find and secure funding. She's been traveling to a bunch of different places trying to find someone who will help back their research and is trying to get a grant essentially, and ends up at Haddon Industries, which at the time we just know is a panel she's giving up sales pitch to. And she kind of goes off the rails a little bit, just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to work on this. And you can kind of get right off the bat that they're like, this is not, again, like Stephen mentioned earlier, this is not a sound endeavor. There's nothing that guarantees we'll see a return on investment on this. It's just, science for exploration's sake. It's not really anything that we can guarantee is going to make a profit for us. And as she's pitching this, what about the Wright brothers? What about all these different advances that we've seen in technology over the years? The people at the panel get a phone call, and it turns out that there's a camera in the corner of the room that's watching her, and they say that she's got her funding. So somebody watching her approves what she's doing, that she can go work with the VLA out in New Mexico at a large observatory is not the right word, but a large research facility to do what she's looking for doing. And that's where the next little section takes us off to. Gary, did you have something?
The mysterious benefactor. Like, I also could have dealt without that subplot. Like, you could have just been like, some rich motherfucker funded me, or this company funded me. The addition of the mysterious benefactor, who later is blamed for like it being a hoax, like I could have dealt with either that subplot being shrunk or just eliminated. Steven?
That is a very important plot in the book. It doesn't play out exactly the same way as in the movie, but I think that there are also a significant amount of movies of this time and of a time maybe just a little bit later after this in the aughts, where all movies and books had this assumption that when you had a super hyper rich person who was on the edge of death, basically, that they would become an ultra philanthropist. You know what I'm saying here. And that they would start just giving their money away for the pursuit of sake of science or the pursuit of sake of happiness, goodness. And there's going to be always that one person who you'd think would be basically the Elon Musk of the world, but they're going to actually turn out to be a good guy. instead of, Elon Musk. And it's hard to watch these scenes and read these scenes nowadays with how
Reality.
the billionaire class maybe acts. And I'm not necessarily, just so everyone's aware, I am in no way, shape, or form a socialist. I am a committed capitalist. That being said, I still find the actions of the billionaire class maybe hard to square the circle when you're talking about these people who see themselves as the saviors of humanity and then doing what they do. So it's, although I understand where you're coming from, Gary, I think this is more a plot of the time and a optimism of the time that as the rich got richer, they'd work to give it back. They'd work to make the world a better place. And unfortunately, we're jaded because we never saw that play out.
Legit.
I'm jaded for many, many more reasons, but that
I did actually have a comment on this later on because this is a recurring theme. And so we can talk about it too when we get back there, because I am interested, Gary, to hear more of your twisted mind and your thoughts on this. But for right now, yes, there is a mysterious benefactor in the room that we get to hear more on later. All right, so to keep us going here, we are fast forwarded then that Ellie has been working for some time then out at New Mexico.
The VLA, the very
VLA.
large array.
Right. The very large array of different dishes that they're trying to just search all aspects that they can. And we get the premise again that this has been going on. There's nothing to show for this. Like, they're just searching different areas. And again, is it that the noble field of where they're looking is so vast that they're never going to find anything, or just that they don't know where to look, so they're just shooting in the dark literally every time? And then seemingly out of nowhere, I forget why, I watched this a couple days ago, she just goes out in a huff. Was it that they were going to be shut down? Is that what it was? Or there was some just that again, it's fruitless, and so the thought is they're going to shut them down. So thank you, Stephen. So she goes and just sits out, and again, doing what she does, just not like this is going to be the time even. She seems almost like she's just given up and just goes out and lays out on her car with her headset on, listening to the background music, and which has just been static. This is all she's ever heard. And then something happens. Stephen, did you have something on that sentence?
I just wanted to point out that it was during that intermission as well that we get Palmer Joss reintroduced to the plot line through a movie or through a TV show, and said, hey, he's now famous. He has this fantastic book. He is an advisor to the president, and that he is his big thing is what JC commented on before, is technology putting us together or pulling us apart, and his idea that technology is pulling us apart and making us less connected with each other and lead more meaningless lives.
Could you imagine that fiction?
As I sit here with friends from 1, 2, 3, 4 different cities, yeah.
So, yeah, Ellie is just sort of detached all by herself, kind of at the end of a rope. And then we hear this signal. There's a weird underscore sound that we've never heard before as an audience. And it's something. Like, we don't know quite what it is, but we hear something. And she races back, then checks it with her team, and her team starts checking multiple different sources to find out what it is. And they find out that they're hearing a sound source of some from some known entity from a system in a star called Vega, which they say is only 26 million light years away, which again, in the vastness of what we're describing in the universe, is like next door. Like, it's interesting that they mentioned several times. People have searched there. People have looked there. There's why would we be hearing something from that? This is as if it was next door. This is something close that we would have heard before if it was something, but now is coming through crystal clear. And that's kind of where the movie obviously is sci-fi. It's fiction. There's something in there that changes it. Where I read several critiques of this movie after I watched it, just looking at like what random people had said and commented, and scrolled quite a ways through it. So even like some of the negative things I'd heard, one of my questions I wanted to propose to you is that a lot of people, again, just the bubbling to the surface critiques of this, was they thought that the sci-fi of it seemed very plausible. like obviously hearing the sound, all of this coming out, but that it would be something that if the sci-fi was real, the way they wrote it, and again, this is, you can talk to the book too, Stephen, is that it was written very logically, or it seemed to like it was pseudoscience, but like actually sounded not too far off. What are your thoughts on that?
You are correct in that it is plausible science. Everything in here is plausible science, even if it was a little bit out of the bounds for the time that it was created. And that's because the book itself was what's called or termed a hard science fiction book. In comparison to a regular science fiction book where, you just kind of make up stuff, and some of my favorite books are just regular science fiction books, but hard science fiction is where everything is basically science fact. They're a little bit denser to read and maybe have some algorithms thrown in there at some points, but that is what the book Contact is by Carl Sagan. It is a hard science book. Everything in there is plausible. And so you are right that it is definitely plausible, everything that happens here, and it was fairly well thought out plausibility as well. Like, for instance, we're going to get a little bit later, there is a scene with wormholes, and the scene with the wormholes was actually suggested by Kip Thorne, who, if anyone knows who Kip Thorne is, he's also a theoretical physicist. And so it's like, this isn't necessarily something that was just a random author writing random stuff. Carl Sagan is, in fact, a cosmologist. Kip Thorne is a physicist. These people are primarily actually scientists, and they wrote a book, and the book just happened to be really good. So that's why you're getting a hard science fiction on that.
Tyler.
To speak more then towards the criticism that you brought up, this is actually something I had notated down, and I wouldn't say so much at this point in time, but it was like definitely like it's to jump farther ahead into the movie if we want. It's like definitely the scene, like the first structure that they built there or whatever is like, okay, all the nations and stuff have come together to kind of pool their resources to build this thing and everything like that, and we're going to try this out, and then it fails, and then it's like, okay, but then jump to, and this is where I think it like drops the sense of like realism a little bit. It's like, oh, secretly there was a second structure being built, nobody knew about it and everything like that. This multi-trillion-dollar thing is all of a sudden there and built and ready to go. It's just like, okay, now it's kind of like jump the gun a little bit there here.
I can see that, yeah.
I had a note from this point in the movie that we were originally talking about where it's like, yeah, all this scientific supporting info sounds fantastic. I mean, I wasn't sure if it actually ended up being true for a lot of it, but it felt true, and it was presented in a way that like, okay, this feels like it's plausible. And then like I mentioned with my intro, like AWACS status negative, there's a lot of jargon that's kind of thrown around that's very like, if you know what you're listening for, and like the AWACS is like basically the airborne radar planes that go out and find other planes for combat aircraft. So yeah, if they're out there doing military exercises, they could be causing issues, and so they're calling up and making sure that, hey, the military is not doing anything right. But all they'd say is like, is AWACS up? No, AWACS status negative. All right, and they move on. Like, so it's very good jargon around the movie without really. It doesn't need to be boiled down to have the audience understand absolutely everything. If they don't understand it, and it's not absolutely plot critical, just let it be flavor dressing and move on. So I like little things like that.
I do like that too. It seems like if they were actually scientists, and like not like to publish obviously, but if they did discover something, they want to verify it, right? Reliability, validity. Can we repeat this? Is this accurate? Like there's a scene where they're like, should we call somebody? And they're like, no, let's contact so and so. And I forget who they reach out to, but they have somebody else check the same signal and see if they can pick it up too. And they call back like the next morning. They've been checking through the night all the different channels, see just to can we disprove this, right? Like, is this something else? What are we missing that this could be? And this other group calls back and says, nope, I see it coming from Vega, yada yada, whatever the frequency is, whatever hertz. And it again, yeah, I like that kind of stuff. It adds layers to it, so it's not just like we found it, bah, everything fixed now.
was Australia, mate.
there you go.
But yeah, no, that was actually I liked that as well. That one of the first things it is we need to make sure this is true before we say anything about it to anyone. Before we go public with this crazy information, we are gonna verify that this is correct.
Arkham's razor. They need to verify that it's not something simple.
No, it's Occam's razor, but that's not it. The simplest solution.
Occam's razor.
Well, they have to eliminate other possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Occam's razor is that. Arkham's razor is when you put that, you put it on like Arkham Asylum.
Oh, got it.
Arkham's razor is if you put all the bad guys in a single place, they will bust out.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure where to go for that. So yeah.
I will call back to Shotzi's point that like once they get to the second, and maybe they had it earlier, but it was just one of those things where they have this like hover jet flying towards the second thing, and it's like, where did this come from? Like
that was weird.
Yeah, like, did it take a long time to get to build the like? If you say, hey, these took 20 years to build, and technology advanced during that time as we learned what we were doing. Sure, but like it doesn't feel like, I'm pretty sure Bill Clinton is the president for all of it, right? Like they don't necessarily pull him up outside from the initial launch, but they just keep saying, "Yep, the president," and it's the same crew working with the same president. So like, as we know, that doesn't happen these days. So yeah, it just felt like all of a sudden it's like, here's like this fancy future jet, and it's like that didn't. Where are we? What happened?
You were talking about Bill Clinton. I had a note here that there was a weird sort of like I actually wrote it down. They Forrest Gumped him into things, and then I kind of thought about it. I was like, oh, because it's Robert Zemeckis, and Robert Zemeckis made Forrest Gump. So, of course, that's the style of which you would put a politician into your story.
I don't understand that reference, but I will say that the film
Do you know who Forrest Gump is?
I do, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, in the movie Forrest Gump, they
not my point.
The main
not my
character
point.
into historical events.
Okay.
So at some points, the main characters and Bill Clinton are in the same room, and they superimpose them together.
Gotcha. So my point was more that the Clinton administration actually sent it wasn't actually a cease and desist letter, but it was a do not use my, this is not the correct way to use my image, or you do not have authority to use my image, to the filmmakers. It was just short of a cease and desist, and that's why they were able to keep it in the film. But it was a notification for films moving forward. Don't use Bill Clinton's image moving forward.
I wonder if that was just the Clinton administration, or if it was a sitting president's something or other.
Because they used like a free a public press conference, and just basically like it just happened to have the right things to say in it or something, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it was probably a little questionable for them to be like, you can't at all, because it's on the public domain at that point. But at the same time, like we can control it. You don't get to just use our image in movies.
If they changed what he said, maybe that's the issue. Like, I harken back to Forrest Gump. Like, I think they had their dead presidents saying things that they never actually said.
Yes.
Or maybe they just pulled clips.
They got
from
lucky.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, they got lucky at a specific press conference or something, and I don't remember more than that. There was some stuff about it, but what I was looking up the trivia for it, and this was mentioned in there, and they didn't actually like change anything. I think they got lucky with what he said, but also they like took certain phrases and used that where they needed to. They didn't edit it, but it obviously wasn't said for this, which context is key.
Mm-hmm.
And at least it was Contact, but it could have been, some other crazy movie that chose to do it. So I can see them being like, don't do it again.
Well, I want to get to two things that maybe we haven't touched on. I apologize if I'm jumping the gun here.
Oh, you're good.
But the way that they receive this telegram is through prime numbers, which I thought they do in the book too. It is such a fascinating way of communication that math is the communication that everyone is going to know regardless of language. And so if you shoot off these prime numbers and you repeat them over and over and over and over, eventually someone will get, holy cow, this is math. They're trying to do math. Okay, so math is a universal language. Let's study this using math. And I thought that was, I really enjoyed that. Really, really enjoyed that. The
Agreed.
second thing, real quick, was just, and I know this is a little bit later, but Ellie does say at one point that I'm a scientist, so I use Occam's razor as a scientific principle. Fun fact for the court, Occam's razor was created by the Catholics and was created by a
Oh.
theologian. It was not, he happened to also be a scientist, but it is also technically a religious principle. It's in the Summa Theologia, so it's...
Yeah, and it really depends on your idea of what's simple or not.
I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting in the precursor of that paradigm. All things being equal, here's my point. It's like you have to agree all things are equal to even
Ceteris
make
paribus.
that. Yeah. It's like, well, the whole reason we're arguing is because I don't think everything is equal. So just saying this proves my point, it doesn't. Interesting. I forget when they discern, because there's like several different, like Steven said, there's several different understandings that they find in this initial frequency. First, they hear it, then they realize it's layered, and they actually discern that the layers actually have an image to it, and they realize, oh crap, who's got a VHF and who can put up a monitor to showcase what this is actually looking at. And they find out that the differences in the frequency actually presents a picture, and of course they're zoomed in, so they're trying to figure out what it is, orient it the right way, and as they zoom out, they see that this is a tie back to the beginning of what we were talking about when you talk about the earliest airwaves that reached the planet, or the star, Vega, would be the 1939 broadcasting, one of the first times we broadcasted around the globe, the opening to the Olympic Games, which just happened to be in Berlin. And so at the time in 1939, Berlin, for those of you who know your history, what is presented is a picture and a recording of a small loop of Adolf Hitler presenting, and now I declare the 1939 Olympic Games here in Berlin open. And it's like, everyone's like, oh, hello, there's a picture of Hitler, which of course is this huge, geopolitical kerfuffle, boondoggle, if you will, right in the middle of this right in the middle of this. Hey, this is scientific discovery. This is new. This is exciting. Oh crap! It's Nazis. They just keep showing up. Huzzah!
I
Amanda.
do remember whenever I watched this movie before. I want to say the first time I ever saw it, I must have been like a kid or a teenager or something. But I do remember the horror of realizing what it was when you're first, like, as they start rotating it, and you realize what the symbol is that you're looking at, and then the slow. I mean, like you said, it harkens back to the beginning when you're zooming out, but it also does the same, harkens back to the beginning in that zooming out and getting the full picture there too, and just the horror of realizing, oh, it's Hitler. I greatly enjoyed that callback just because I was like, oh, that's right, it's not all that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary to think that is the first transmission. So that was the 1936 Olympics, and it was the first transmission to ever escape the ionosphere of the Earth. And it is scary to think that is, in fact, the first transmission humans ever made outside of the planet. That is not a joke. That is something that is the first thing we ever broadcasted out into space, was the Hitler
still out
speech.
there.
So
Still
good
going.
on us.
Yeah. Right. I would be young and naive. Ignorance is bliss also is another good one that would be approachable. I like, again, the implication of like trying to, again, this kind of ties into some of the thoughts we've mentioned already about us trying to put what the implications could be in our own understanding and what our intellect understands, and how the characters are very witty in that early banter between the different groups about what does this mean. Well, maybe this means, I think James Woods, who's another iconic actor in this, who plays the national security advisor for the United States, Michael Kitts, they're like, why would they use a picture of Hitler? And it's like, well, the people are explaining logically, it's the first radio signal that got out that far, and that's just something that they're using to say hi, because it's the only thing they know of what exists of our species, because it's the first time they've heard from us. Whereas then Michael Kitts, pragmatically, some would say, also says, he has a line, he goes, or maybe they're just saying, hey, you're our kind of people, Sieg Heil. And it's like, that's terrifying to think of, right? Maybe that's when they hear this and they don't know all the atrocities that happen from the Nazis, but they hear that and they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is who this entity is, and they wanted to contact us anyways. Like, that doesn't say, if they have standards or if they have concerns, that those aren't apprehensions to hold them up from reaching out to us. Gary.
I actually did kind of, it was something that I was like, as I was watching, and I was like, oh, well, I was interested, like, how are they going to spin this PR wise? Like, do they just
Yeah.
not say what the message was? No, they admit what the message was, but they had to, like, as Steven said, very much explain why it was the first thing that came out. And not that the transmission itself had significance, but that it was the first thing.
So in this initial discovery scene, there's several scenes here. They're at the White House, then they're escalated here. David Drumlin is reintroduced because he's in charge of this process of what they're doing for in regards of working with SETI, trying to find all this noise. And they're at the White House. They, like we're talking about too with the presidents, you see the president come in and address the press secretaries, going through what they think they've seen, and then he says, and now we'll take some questions, and he passes it off to somebody else who's going to talk more. And he says, from the team that discovered the signal, and we're standing there seeing in the middle of the frame, Ellie standing next to David Drumlin, and she's prepping herself, thinking she's going to go up and address the crowd and speak to the nation. Hey, I've discovered this, and there's this moment of validation that is overshadowed as we realize they introduce up David Drumlin, and this mother truck and tool bag just steps into her limelight and goes up and says he's helped discover this signal. Even
So I think that actually is that's the capstone on what had been happening already. I think that when this signal is first detected, you have Dave Drumlin in there with the National Security Advisor, Michael Kitts, and with Ellie. And Ellie keeps trying to explain it, and Dave Drumlin keeps explaining it as well. And it is you keep thinking like, oh, well, maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe he's just really excited. Maybe he's getting it. And it's not until this penultimate moment that you're going, oh, no, he is taking over. He is making sure that he gets the credit here. He gets the limelight here. He is pushing himself forward in the line. And I unfortunately understand why he would have been taken as the person to talk as the national security or national science advisor / the person who oversees the project, although Ellie technically oversees the direct project. He oversees the overseer. That makes sense, but it caps off a very much a idea of, hey, he's going to be the stereotypical I'm going to
Bureaucrat?
No, I'm going to talk over you, man. He's going to be the person who interrupts, who interjects, who explains. Well, and it's unfortunate because I think that's he does it in a non-threatening, non-aggressive way. And I think that there are a lot of people that would see this and go, well, I'm not necessarily sure he's doing anything wrong. And that in and of itself is the point.
Yeah. 100%.
Not sure if Amanda had any thoughts on that. Because I know Amanda, at one point I walk in and I ask Amanda how it's going. She says, I'm getting far too invested in this, and she is not happy at that point in time. And I'm like, oh, I know what she's watching.
Yeah, I was very irritated at him. You put it really well. He is that guy that's gonna talk over you and take over it, and that's the thing. Because I was like, I felt like she was giving him too much, like, leeway. Honestly, a couple times, but she is a professional. She's a scientist, and she handles it. But I also was like, he clearly, to me at least, was showing a few times that he didn't know as much as she was, as much as she did. He was clearly putting that to other people as well a few times. But I also wanted her almost to say something like, "Hey, you didn't even think this was worthwhile. You literally threatened to move her somewhere else.
Yeah.
And now you're going to call it your team." But did they fly her all the way out to Washington and not tell her, "Hey, you're not the one giving the press conference, by the way"?
It's more dramatic,
Right.
Amanda.
Like,
Right.
I guess for people who put on press conferences, they usually like to know every little detail of that and have everyone else know what they're supposed to do every little detail too. I guess I just assumed.
FYI, basically, FYI, you should figure out some cue cards. You should write down your notes, and then it will be approved by somebody else. Like, what is public knowledge? What's national security issues? And
Especially
she didn't
since
know that she should have been asked.
Yeah, especially since they had already been giving her crap for being like, "Hey, should you have just immediately called everyone?" And she was like,
Yeah.
"Yes, I should have."
We're going to have these people in the press briefing on this national security matter talking with the president here. This is who this is. This is who this is. What about that gal in the corner? She's just here for the lulz.
Yeah, she's just here for some tourism. Like,
Right. So that's a big kick in the crotch. As she's standing off to the side, realizing kind of where she's been displaced to, Kent, played by again another amazing actor, William Finchner, plays her work colleague, who's blind. Really good performance overall. Just commenting on the actor's talent. That he has also discovered something else in this quick discovery session of listening to this noise, listening to it. He's highlighting to her as she's on her way back to the VLA, there is a level of imagery in the sound that you can actually extrapolate that shows that there's some sort of pages, I guess I'll just say, for lack of a better word, that highlight, it's almost what seem like schematics, not quite engineering blueprints. We get there later on when it makes sense. But there's some sort of like alien writing or symbology in the pages that they have. And they discover later on the number at first is up to 10,000, but then later they say there's over 63,000 pages of this information that they discover. Gary.
You mentioned Kent, and I just had this written down as like something in the nowadays that you couldn't do. And in the nowadays, you couldn't, based on like disability activism, you couldn't put a very much sighted actor into a role as a blind person. Like, I don't think that would fly. Then that was
I think you're probably
something
right.
I agree.
Sure.
I mean, I think he did a fantastic job, but I think in today's day and age, we understand better now that you could just also cast a blind person.
That was all. That was all I had to say about Kent.
It's good. Actually, Gary, I might bring it right back to you because there's this struggle in that the following scenes. Then after they discover that there's these layered symbolistic drawings that they really can't put two and two together to figure out how it makes sense, and they realize they have dozens and dozens of these pages, but they can't actually do anything with it. They're like, okay, we have tons of this data. What does it mean? How to read it? And they can't figure it out. And again, there is a mysterious benefactor that comes out of nowhere. And they say, hey, she gets a notice as an email that shows her some of the pages. And she's like, oh, crap, who hacked into the database? And gets this mysterious, hey, get a hold of us. And in that scene, I was trying to remember how it actually, she makes contact with him. She's flown in a helicopter. She gets a mysterious email, and her response is, hey, I need someone who can fly me to this undisclosed location. Why? I don't know. But I certainly am someone who shouldn't just be flying to some random location and hop on a private jet. So that struck me as kind of odd. But she ends up meeting Mr. Haddon. You have something?
Yeah, I also was like, somehow a billionaire millionaire knew more about this science than all the scientists and cryptographers that they put in front of it. Like, would never have thought about, like, well, what if we just fold the paper? That seemed weird. Also, I didn't even catch that. Like, I assume she was flown in because she's probably on the head of national security. But yeah, it'd be weird that you'd get a helicopter flight from national security to a plane that's flown by a private billionaire. So yeah, that doesn't really make sense. But yeah, Steven.
So I will say that this might be another issue with the book trying to not do it exactly like the book did it. In the book, Haddon is in fact a brilliant engineer who has created something for TVs that we would all love nowadays. Basically, it mutes your TV when a commercial comes on. It uses recognition, and this book was written in 1987 or something. It uses vocal recognition and these other factors to tell when a ad is coming on, and it mutes it. Then he creates another one that is able to tell when pastors or like people going to preach at you are going to come on, and it switches the channel to a different channel. And people are really upset at him, and basically he stops working with governments ever again after the NSA decides that they're going to take his technology. But he is portrayed in the book as that brilliant of an engineer. And the reason why he becomes a recluse is because the United States government requisitioned his technology, and because they thought it had national security implications to it, which is a theme that I wish they had stuck with, because it gets back to, in this movie, her project is taken by the government because it has national security implications to it, which is one of the, I think that's a fantastic way to say that is why he's so empathetic to her. So
I do like hearing that backstory. He mentions in that intro, because it's all we really hear of who he is or why he's doing what he's doing, where he says, I've made enemies with some of the governments around the world. But that's all he says. So it's like, you an arms dealer? Like, who, you know? So I think that that's interesting to hear, too.
I think one of the overarching things in this, compared to the book to the movie, is the movie is and I'm sure this is due to the time, is significantly more quote unquote patriotic or nationalistic than the book is. The book is very much internationalist, or for Haddon has no country. He claims no country whatsoever, because he was screwed by the US government, so he never wants to work with the US government ever again. And that's not something maybe they didn't want to put it into film. They thought it'd be too controversial to make a film where, hey, the United States wasn't always the good guy, in fact, and multiple other countries. They work with the Soviet Union a lot in the book. And so none of that happens in the movie. And I think that might be where you're coming from there.
Very much so. I'll circle back around again, because Gary, I had pegged you with part of that question. Do you think, and I think I already know your answer, do you think the character of Haddon is too much of a deus ex machina, where it's like, oh, I'm stuck, I have no funding, Haddon. Oh, crap, I have 63,000 pages that nobody on Earth can figure out, Haddon. Do you think he's too much of something that solves everybody's problem because there's some mysterious benefactor?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I feel like, as you said, Steven's explanation that he's a brilliant engineer, not just a millionaire whose wealth and knowledge is very much glossed over. Also, I do believe that someone invented a technology to skip commercials. It would be fought so hard, tooth and nail, to like
Shut down.
not like to claim that somehow the technology was copyrighted, or like it couldn't be used, or like they'd fight that tooth and nail. Anyway, but yeah, I think it is kind of he's a solution. And especially if you don't know he's a brilliant scientist, that like somehow he's the one that thinks that you should make it a cube rather than a flat piece of paper schematic. I don't know. Also, it shows all the corners and they look like it makes a box, and then when they flip them together, it'd make you think it was a circle, but it's a weird
Dodecahedron.
But yeah, the symbolism in the corner, I feel like, would be a curved line would indicate that you should connect the several curved lines rather than a square. I think it's like a slightly more square line.
Well, I think that gets back to the old, and I had a English teacher in high school who thought he was very smart and gave us this thing those little mental puzzles that you have where a teacher will give you like 4 or 5, I can't remember what it is. I think it's 4 pieces of what is it? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it's maybe 6 pieces of wood, and you have to create from those 6 pieces of wood without any of them overlapping 4 triangles. And so people are moving them all around on the table trying to put them together. The solution is to create a pyramid. And so none of them are overlapping, but it's 3D, so you don't think about it. And I think that's what this was supposed to be. You're not thinking, or to quote James Kirk or to quote Spock, they're thinking in 2-dimensional space.
Again, I like how the movie tries to not give answers that are too science fictional. It's like this science makes sense. I think I wrote down also Haddon says, well, you're not thinking like a vegan. A species that's going to generate this kind of technology is obviously much more advanced. So you have to think more advanced than we would. Like we would have a 2-dimensional answer written out linearly, whereas their answer is something put together in a 3-dimensional space. The next, go ahead.
And I had forgotten until you said that he says like, oh, think like a vegan. And I initially thought like, is this the Scott Pilgrim crossover? Do vegans have superpowers in this universe? What's happening?
Yes. My next question for all of you was, I think I jumped around because I think you actually see everybody come with like the craziness of the randos who showed up at the desert too before that scene with Haddon. But do you think that's far-fetched, or do you think people would be that crazy to start showing up talking about religion, talking about, hey, Nazis, this is a sign, neo-Nazi Hitler lives on Vega was one of the signs that I had written down. And the religiosity, again, tying it back to kind of the 2 themes in this show. Do you think that that's far-fetched, or would people be that crazy?
I want to say at this time, I possibly could have believed that this would have been too far-fetched. Given the world we live in nowadays, no, I don't believe this is far-fetched at all.
I personally think that something as life-defining as the discovery that we are not alone would probably break a lot of people's minds. And I further think that the only people that would travel out to the VLA in New Mexico would be the craziest of the crazies. Having lived in Roswell, you're only going to get the craziest of the crazies.
I absolutely believe we'd get those people there. I think the messages and like some of the stuff might be updated a little bit but I'm quite sure we would get those people there. And some people that are just there for the fun of it.
Mm-hmm. Balls.
All the influencers, they'll be there, you know?
Oh yeah, you're going to have tons of influencers nowadays. That would be all of them nowadays. I'm over here at the VLA. That stands for Very Large Array for all you guys out there.
Quote a very good friend of mine, there'd be lots of conspiracy theorists.
Oh no. Gary would be number 1.
If I could find a way to make money off of it, sign me up.
Coming soon, Gary's Conspiracy Theory Podcast.
Ooh, yeah. It's all just conspiracy theories. So, again, highlighting some of
like
these...
how you get a government watch list.
It's true. So, highlighting some of these
more
crazies...
government's watch lists. Gotcha.
There are several different entities, all these sort of fringe people with different ideologies. You know, people who are there sort of celebrating, sort of just partaking it in. And as Ellie is driving to work, she passes Jake Busey's character, who I don't think we actually ever heard his name, but he's listed in the cast as playing the character Joseph. But Jake Busey, very blonde actor, has a very long blonde hair, is giving a pastoral speech to some would-be followers, talking about, are these the people you want talking to your God? And again, heavy religious overtones. Steven.
This is going to be a non-movie question. What else does Jake Busey play in? Because I saw him and I went, oh, he looks familiar.
Stranger Things.
Starship Troopers.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, I've got the cast list up here. Let me click his name and see what comes up.
Well, they said Starship
That's
Troopers.
what I'm doing.
From Starship Troopers.
Stranger
Sorry, but that being
Things.
said, yeah, I 100% believe that if there'd be crazies out there thinking that you'd be talking to their god and they don't want you to talk to their god, which you would
Right.
feel powerless. I don't want to defend his character, but if
He did
there were
nothing wrong.
extraterrestrial life out there, he did nothing wrong. There were good people on both sides, but
Right.
there were if we were to find extraterrestrial life out there and you and I had no way to contact them and it was only our government right now that could contact them, how secure would you guys feel? Our
Yep.
government right now. Like that would put me on edge. And so I can empathize with where he is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already on edge just with the thought experiment that like this is the administration that makes contact and gets to control that.
Right.
Oh God.
He is also in Twister. I'm having a hard time remembering who he is in Twister.
Oh yeah, he is.
And Stranger Things.
What's he in Stranger Things?
I'm not. It says
one of
Bruce,
the
I think, but I don't recognize him.
In Stranger Things, he's one of the guys that works at the newspaper that Nancy and
But that's right. Yes, he
the-
is.
I do not remember that.
He was the radio man in Spec Ops: The Line.
Yeah.
That's actually the one thing I most know him from. All right, damn.
So
Spec Ops: The Line, classic.
He's also in
foreshadow-
XCOM 2.
XCOM
Yep.
2.
Yeah, it's a bad game.
So a little bit of foreshadowing as we pass by all these different people on the side of the road. They're all just like kind of doing their own thing. But Jake Busey's character of Joseph very specifically points out to Ellie, and they lock eyes. He says, "Are these the people you want talking to your God?" And you can tell that him and his followers are not pleased with that scenario, that headcanon. So, anyways, going forward.
On the very small subject of cameos, this is also when we first see Rob Lowe is in the movie.
Yes,
Yes, it was so weird.
It's weird with
Playing
his
it.
Where was
southern
Rob
accent.
Lowe?
Yeah.
How many Rob Lowe's
He's-
how many Lowe's could Rob Lowe rob if a Lowe could rob Lowe's?
He comes in as like the Christian like advisor there at the White House
Yeah.
at one point.
Yeah, it's like a conservative coalition
Ugh.
spokesman or something.
I don't know if
Just
it's because
with
he's
a foghorn leghorn
Yeah.
accent. It's just
I don't know if it's because he's playing
I'll
kind of a ditzy character, but it reminded me a lot of like Parks and Rec because like his character is very ditzy in that too, and I just kept seeing him as that. And Perkins. Yeah. So there's this conversation then, that Haddon has put together. You can find out that these different symbolic messages make a three-dimensional picture and put together that they are in fact blueprints and schematics. And so then Ellie is at this presidential meeting just presenting that they have yet again found another specific thing in this message that shows that these blueprints, these pages, are to build something and they don't know what it is, and they just sort of they decide to call it the IMC, the International Machine Consortium or something like that, not knowing what it does, but that this machine of some sort references it's something they want us to build. And again, the National Security Advisor James Wood is like, it's the Trojan horse, you build it and then their army pours out. Like, it's his job to think of the terrible things that this could be. Or I think somebody else in that conversation mentions it's a bomb, and we build it and blow ourselves away. And again, Tom Skerritt's character of David Drumlin is sort of talking over Ellie as she's presenting what she and her team have found again, sort of mansplaining everything to the team, to the president when he walks in later, and talking about this, like, should we build it? Do we know what it is? Like, could we build it? What is it going to be? And it's again this moment of, hey, we've got this discovery, this is what it is. And there's several scenes here. I feel like I'm describing it really quickly, but going through these scenes, it's like we found the next piece of the puzzle. Is it logically ethical? Is it advisable, is probably the best word with the people in the room, to proceed, right? Or should we not, in the face of, again, the pursuit of truth, should we not plow forward?
And honestly, I think it's a good debate. I think that there's a lot of people out there that'll look at it and go, "Oh, of course they should build it." Bro, they play off the threats of, "Oh, this is a Trojan horse, this is a bomb." You don't know. Is there air? You don't know. I mean, I I don't like the way they play off those concerns. Those are very real concerns. Those are things that you'd 1,000,000% have to take into account, and it's not something just to laugh off as "ha ha, stupid security advisor." No, it's legit. That's at minimum maybe build a small version of it to see kind of if you can get an idea of what it is. But if it blows up, it's going to kill you all. If it freaking sends Godzilla through, you don't know.
Is it just because you read the book, did they mention more about like the worry or the concern, or is it not touched on in the book?
No, it's touched on. I think there's a debate about it, and it generally follows the same road through.
Obviously, they have the story of they have to complete. If they just don't, or it halts too long, it ends.
Yeah.
Ends the arc. All right. So at this discussion, then they decide they are going to build it, and Ellie has left the room again. They're she's being displaced out of the conversation, out of the limelight. Limelight's probably the wrong word because I don't think Ellie's doing anything for the limelight. This is her dream, and this is like she's one of the main drivers as to why they've gotten as far as they have, with Heden's help because he's the eye in the sky. But they get to this position where she is out of the room, and they're discussing: should we build this? Should we not? What are we going to do? And oh shoot, I skipped over the Occam's razor scene where they go to the party. Back to that. And they come back and say that they are going to go ahead and go forward and build it. And so there's this discussion of who gets to go. I skipped the Occam's razor part. Since we mentioned that, I want to go back to that scene really quick to highlight the interaction between Palmer Joss and Ellie really quick, and then we'll come back to who's on the short list. So they have this, like, they're all together. They have this evening out gala while they're there in Washington, and Ellie says, do you know where I can find a really nice dress? And she gets really dolled up. Again, to me, now with the previous conversation we had about, oh, she's a female lead, she has to have a male counterpart. Is that detached from her level of perceived credibility that she's like, I got to find a good dress because I got to really look great for Palmer? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, that did kind of seem really weird. Like, she's a scientist. Like, she's not here for the people, but like, obviously, oh my God, this boy I used to like is here. No, it's not a boy you used to like. It's a boy you fucking ghosted. Like
once,
like a
one
couple
night, like
years
we
earlier.
said. Yeah.
Yeah. It just is a dumb thing. Like, she could have just showed up in a nice outfit and you didn't need her to ask for an outfit. Steven?
I don't know. I don't necessarily hate that scene. I think that it is someone that she liked previously, and regardless of how scientific you are, you're going to have that first impulse of, oh shit, I'm going to see the X, or in this case, I'm going to see the X one night stand. I actually do want to look good, and we just had that moment in the briefing room where he didn't save my butt by any means, but he was there and he wasn't adversarial, at least. I think that she probably would have thought, hey, I'm going to this huge gala. I should probably bring something nice to wear in the first place. So maybe that's a little shoehorned in, but by no means, if you think the hot guy that you slept with back several years ago is going to be going to the same place and he's still kind of a cool dude, yeah, you probably want to look good.
Yeah, see, the same thing about the press. Like, they had a press conference and didn't tell her who was doing what, didn't tell her, hey, pack a dress because you're going to a gala. I just thought it was weird who she asked. Like, this person's pretty high up in the White House and you, like, interrupted them to ask them recommendations of a dress store, which, to be fair, it's not like Google was quiet on your phones yet. You weren't going to Google dress store
Can I say
options.
something? The reason why she asked her, because she's the only other female character that matters.
Oh, I know exactly. That's why.
Oh,
I know exactly. Because I was sitting here being like,
I feel like you would ask anyone else in that room, not the person who's like a very important. Like, they're not a staffer at the White House. They're an important person. Like, you could ask anyone else in the room.
That's why I thought it was weird. Like, of course she's going to ask another female character. Guys are not going to know where to get the dresses. I get that. However, I thought it was weird that you would ask her. There's got to be other people around, or I don't know. I just don't think she'd be in that situation in the first place. And she's a scientist. Scientists usually do have to go to things and beg for like money and stuff. And I'm sure she's had to go to the odd gala in her day. So like, I don't know. She should have already had a dress.
All I can think of now is the I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically a movie criteria of like of how female representation is like, is the woman in a movie? Does she talk to another woman in the movie? And is it about something other than romance or boys? So in this situation, if she has to ask about a dress, is that the same as like asking about boys?
That's asking about a boy.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just like something I randomly thought of. I don't know if anyone else has ran into that. I can't remember. It's probably on NPR or something about
It's the Bechdel
movies
test.
that have women talking to other women about anything other than like boys.
It's just like who she asked. And then also like everyone has very different styles. So I was like, I'm not going to just ask a random girl, where do I find a really great dress? What?
Mm-hmm. It's fair. It's good points. She bumps into Palmer Joss at the reception, and again, right off the bat, her ploy, I don't know what the right word would be there, works, and he says that she's gorgeous right off the bat. And they end up out on the balcony, and again, they have sort of a theological debate. And she says that, well, she implies, I forget the wording here, but she mentions that like there's a delusion aspect to thinking that we invented a religious deity because we can't figure out the science quite yet to prove otherwise. And so again, sort of like the thought with the priest, we invent something comforting, perhaps. I'm trying to use the words that we've had before. We invent something comforting to help us understand the world around us a little bit better. And to help prove her point, this is, since it was brought up earlier, I wanted to make sure I included this discussion. She brings up this theory of Occam's razor, which, as Stephen pointed out, may have some historical preference that actually proves the opposite of what she thinks it does. But there's this theory of Occam's razor. All things being equal, the simplest answer tends to be the right one. And the movie, in fact, goes on to highlight this thought later on, too. So it's worth highlighting here. What are your thoughts about that interaction between the two characters? Gary, did you have your hand up? No.
I just found the term I was looking for. It's the Bechdel test.
I do believe JC
Bechdel
mentioned
test,
that.
which I believe I mentioned.
You did say that? I'm sorry. I'm an idiot.
Sorry.
Like 60 seconds ago. But that's good. I'm glad
You're smarter than me, JC. Anyway, continue on.
Steven,
The Delaney test is if two men talk in a podcast and the other doesn't pay attention at all.
Yes. Yes. I have something named after
We
me.
pass that every time.
So my thought and my feeling on the interaction is that it felt a little forced. It felt rushed, and almost adversarial for especially how it ended versus how it started. And it starts with some little flirting. Oh, it's cold out here. You want to cuddle up next to me? Put your face next to mine. It's going to be very warm. By the way, did you love your dad? Did you? Like,
pulls
shit.
out the framed picture again and is like, is this your dad?
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong.
Picking
I
up right where they left
understand
off.
his point, but the way that he put it is so adversarial that it just
Prove it. Just kind
it
of
felt. Yeah, no, it felt so. You could phrase that so differently. I could phrase that differently. And Palmer Joss is supposed to be this ultra charismatic character. I don't know. It felt awkwardly adversarial and unnecessarily adversarial and too pointed.
I agree. And also, it doesn't make sense because, fun fact, there actually is there is more evidence in regards of, did she love your daughter? Dad, is there evidence of showing her caring for him? Is there evidence of her trauma afterward? Yeah, there actually is stuff that can be submitted as evidence of loving your dad. If you ask it right then and there, like, yeah, straight up, you can't prove it, but there is evidence that can be submitted in its defense.
It's
I-
clearly survivor guilt because her dad was a terrible monster that beat her
Yeah,
up. Am I right?
sure.
Oh,
guys?
that's true. I forgot about that.
I understand the point though.
She's
is that
actually
love-
the alcoholic, and the dad was a fiction of her imagination. She
Oh no,
was
Didn't
that's
even
a
exist.
foster homes
conspiracy
from
theory.
birth.
No, that's JC's conspiracy theory. You need to write it down.
He has to
Tyler
say the
Durden
word.
this thing.
He
Let's
didn't
Tyler
say it
Durden this
first.
thing.
Didn't say it first. Sorry.
But that
I'm
being
There
tied
said,
was
by
two
the
words in, and I
rules.
thought, shit, I should have said the header.
I do understand what he's trying to get at though, in that love is something that is a real connection between people. It is something that you feel, something that you know exists, but something that you you can't necessarily prove. Yeah, are there certain things that maybe hint that maybe love was there? Sure, but I'm sure that people could say there are certain things that point that maybe God was there for the existence. For example, the fact that life exists. People could use that as a point. Does it necessarily prove it? No. Does it disprove it? No. Does a picture of her hugging her dad mean that she loves her dad? No. I think I have pictures of me hugging people I don't really like. I it's I
They're
understand his
me. They're all me.
it's all you. I wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna drop that hint, but um I understand what he's getting at, and I think it is a good point, and it's something that is made by other movies as well, and hard science fiction movies as well, such as Interstellar, of what's the only thing that transmits time and space? It's love. And so I think it's put poorly here, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea.
Interstellar, also with Matthew McConaughey.
It's true.
Hey.
I was thinking that a lot during now knowing that movie, now all this time that's been since, I was like, well, look at that, he came around after all, and who knew he was going to be spending his life exploring a black hole later on.
That time displacement theory is actually referenced in this movie too. They make a reference later on where he says, if you go on this thing, again skipping ahead here, I apologize. If you go on this thing, 25 years might pass in 5 minutes that you're gone or something like that, and 25 years might pass here on Earth or something like that. He's like, everyone might be dead. So it's interesting, something that as a younger individual watching this movie just right over my head, but now as an older individual, you're like the gravity of those kind of conversations really hit you.
Which shout out to
I-
the Forever War, by the way. If anyone ever gets to read that, it's a fantastic book that deals with time dilation and the effects on
Dilation is the
people.
word.
I actually thought that conversation about losing 50 years of people on Earth was very much a telltale sign of that she really had no connections with people on Earth. Like maybe some of her colleagues in the lab she has a close relationship to, but she wouldn't be hurt if she never saw anyone ever again. Like the scientific exploration is so important to her that she would give up everyone else in the world.
Yeah, I think you're
Whereas
correct.
the Drummond was willing to do it, maybe not because he wanted to give up everyone else in the world, but because he wanted the prestige of it. And maybe they just they had the conversation with her, they didn't have it with Drummond.
I don't know. We can get to that when we get to
Drummond.
that. That's a little
Drummond,
bit
yeah.
further down the road, but I do. I think I admit to more altruistic motives for Drummond than I think most people would probably be willing to give him.
That's a good
I think.
transition.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You mean something?
No. I was going to
I
say
was gonna
that.
Sorry, go
You do
ahead.
it. You do it.
I was gonna say that's a good transition. The next point I was going to talk about then is they're interrupted then off the balcony because they're pulled in, that they decide they are going to build this thing. They do discover that within these diagrams there's a person inside the machine, and so all concerns about what does this machine do, it looks like it's transporting some sort of a human being, and they're going to go ahead and build the machine. And so then there's this quick discussion of, well, who gets to go if there's going to be someone who goes on this machine. And they come out again, Dr. Arroway is displaced from the conversation. She's just kind of shunted to the sideline. Shun the non-believer. And they're trying to figure out who gets to go on this trip. And the president's, theological aide, Elmer Josh, comes out and says they're going to build it. They're going to pick 10 people. And you can see David Drumlin walks out of this conversation too. And kind of has this air about him, like, all right, well, we discussed this, we're whatever. And Ellie says, just make sure that Drumlin doesn't get, too much on the selection committee, so to monopolize who gets to pick to go. And Palmer reveals that he has actually stepped down from his role so that he can be considered to go. And sorry, I stepped in front of you there, Stephen, but I was just going to say, do we think at this point, as much of a jerk that Drumlin seems to be, he's always stepping on or in front of Ellie, is he doing it to be antagonistic, or is he just really ambitious? Was the question that I had written down. And you can answer that, or if you have some other thought, go ahead for it. Stephen.
My thought is that he is neither necessarily trying to do it to be antagonistic. I think the movie makes him out to be antagonistic, but I think he is specifically doing it because he actually cares about the science. I think he actually cares about going. I think he actually cares about getting everything right. His method, his modus vivendi of getting ahead, though, is vastly different than what Ellie's is. Ellie's is meritocracy. If I am the best, I will shine. I will get to the best. Dave
That's good,
Drumlin's
yeah.
is, you have to politic your way up. This is how it's always been done. This is how it always will happen. I will have to maneuver my way forward, and I believe I am the best candidate. Therefore, I should work to make sure that I am, in fact, the candidate. And it's a different approach. And that's where I come from, like what we were talking about in terms of, I don't necessarily see him as the bad guy. I see him as having bad ways that none of us would like to have a coworker work with us. But that we know that there are coworkers that do a fantastic job at what they do and still act like this. And it doesn't make them any less competent. It makes them a dick. It doesn't make them less competent or less believing in what they want to do.
Yeah, I think that Stephen pretty much echoed everything I had to say about Drumlin there. He is extremely confident in his own abilities and knows how to play the political game and the charm game to put himself in a position that shows that he will be the one that gets all the glory for it. Those sorts of people are perhaps more narcissistic than directly trying to be antagonistic in their day-to-day life, but of course the end result is, to everyone else, it is antagonistic behavior. So yeah, especially approaching it from Ellie's perspective, then yeah, it feels that way. If the movie focused on Drumlin as the main character the whole time, you might think like, oh, that's what a conniving little guy. But it's it is dick behavior. Stephen.
And I would just reference maybe a historical figure that did the same thing would be some Albert Einstein, who divorced his first wife on the premise of, if you give me a divorce and take care of the kids that I had with you, I will give you the money I get from the Nobel Prize when I eventually win it. Dude, that's because he wanted to marry his cousin, by the way. Not joking. Super dick thing to do. He was brilliant. He believed in what he did. Yeah, who among us? But brilliant.
Bringing it back.
But I don't think that anyone would say that I think that Albert Einstein is a huge asshole. Well, yeah, he was an asshole in some ways, but he super believed in what he was doing. And I think he was super narcissistic. And to an extent, when you get to that level, or when you have whatever that is, you do start believing in yourself probably over much for whatever your talents are.
I would agree with. No, you're good. I would agree with all of that too. I've written down my comment on it was, nobody is the villain in their own story, right? So I think that he's not doing it intentionally. It's just, if she doesn't get, there's a comment he has later that I wanted to highlight, but he says if she doesn't get what she wants, it's just because we don't live in that world. And
I mostly agree with you guys. I do think he's being a bit more of a jerk than possibly you guys do. However, like you said, I don't think he thinks he's doing that. He's a little bit aware that it's not the greatest because he makes kind of a non-apology apology to her at one point after she does not go like nuts on him for it, like after she behaves pretty professionally and still steps back to take her secondary role. But I still think it was a jerk move, and he's done this before because the thing in the very beginning when he was telling her you can do this is never going to happen and maybe it's time to put you somewhere where you're like, I get that he's her boss, although I didn't get that at the time when I was watching the movie, but I was like, yes, because everybody loves it when someone else decides their future for them. So he might just be up there too long to not be able to hear himself now. Nobody thinks they're the villain, but he must be somewhat aware that he's not really doing the greatest things because he walked out of that room with such an air of like, I am the best. And he knew at the very least what it would mean to her.
He does confront her. That's right. He says something to her like, well, I wish you the best or something like that. Like,
no, he doesn't even say that.
what does he say? He says something to her because he walks out and he starts to say something. He stops and changes tone.
He doesn't. He starts off basically like he's going to say good luck, but says, well, and walks off.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Gary? Sorry, I jumped on you.
I feel like he's a bureaucratic scientist. He's someone who moved his way up in the sciences, but his interests and his like enthusiasm for science isn't about the research of it. It's more about like the prestige. Sure. That's my opinion. He's a prestige scientist. He's not about the like.
By that.
He's not interested about knowing how the science is made. He's interested in that science is happening that could benefit him or benefit the world. He doesn't care. I don't think he's really as knowledgeable as anyone else in the room. He's knowledgeable enough to know that to have the right people in the room to give him the memo to explain the science.
He stood on the shoulders of greatness, and he didn't know if he should take the next step. But now he's packaging it and patenting it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox. That one was for Tyler.
It's all fine as long as you don't let the raptors eat people. Like,
right, exactly. 10 points to Amanda. All right. So, trying to keep it going here, and sorry we're getting a little later. So there's a selection committee, and we find out that all these different individuals are politicking. Excellent word there. Try and find out who's going to be selected to go on this historic mission representing the world, not just from the United States, but all these different countries working together. They start building the machine, and they're having a selection committee, and it shows Palmer kind of thinking in his own head, like looking at the different profiles, and there's all these interviews with people who are talking to the different candidates about what they think makes a good person, who should be selected, and why, and what merits. And Palmer sets up sort of this clandestine meeting where he goes and talks to her at, I think it's the reflection pool at the Washington Monument. And they're walking around talking, and Palmer has this interaction with Ellie where he asks her a question. But I want to hear what you all are thinking on this interaction or this preface between the selection committee too. Stephen, you were first.
The first thing that I was thinking was the thing that really gets me here in this scene, or in the scene of the selection committee, is the idea that they would ever even consider Ellie or Dave Drumlin. Dave Drumlin is old as balls and doesn't look like he could. He does not look like the physical type of person that you would want to send in any sort of aspect. No offense. Ellie is a radio astronomer. That is her. That is the beginning and the ending of her qualification. She may have found the signal. She does not own it, and she did not even necessarily decrypt it. She got the decryption from other people. So it's like, I give this to someone who is better qualified for the. And I know you have to stick with one main character, right, throughout a movie. You can't switch, but. Honest to God, you know who you should send? Send Johnny Kim. Look it up. He's an astronaut. Was on the SEALs. Has like PhDs and crap like that. send an astronaut, and I know they showed that scene of one astronaut saying, well, I would go, but my kids asked me not to. I bet you there are 15 other astronauts that would love to go. Or hyper competitive, somebody or another with multiple PhDs and whatever, crypto language, whateverology. But the idea is, I think that Ellie is a bad choice. I think that Dave Drumlin is a bad choice, and especially for the way that the capsule, so shall we say, is set up in the movie. Like, if you're going to send one person, you're not going to send someone who may not physically be able to endure the trip. It makes no sense. Tyler.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen Drumlin team up with some young fighter pilots in some combat training, so I think he's highly qualified for what he's doing.
The Elite.
I
Man,
don't understand that
Best of the
reference.
best.
He's
Top
in Top Gun.
Come on.
Oh, the original Top Gun. I still need to rewatch that. I haven't watched it in such a long time.
You see
Are you
Steven.
even an American? Seriously.
Sometimes.
You
On
should,
Wednesdays.
You should watch Top Gun at least once a year.
Oh,
Have
speaking
that
of-
running through your veins.
Speaking of Wednesdays,
Yeah, I immediately checked it. I was like, Steven, I actually had that thought for a second too when they were at the committee of like, is this how they? First of all, you would choose it by this very public. You wouldn't do a big committee. I don't know, but I did have that moment of one of my favorite astronauts is Chris Hadfield, and he wrote this great book, An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth, and he talks about like being an astronaut and all I was thinking is none of these people I was seeing, I was like, I guess I wouldn't pick them. Granted, knowing what we know in the movie later on, they don't necessarily need to be a pilot or the best necessarily physical, but they don't know at the time. So it does feel like it would have been a safer option to choose someone who could be an astronaut, which is not necessarily the best in the radio field, which is not necessarily a person who's in the politics part of it, and they have to be able to speak for everyone, but at the same time be humble and able to do whatever needs to be done and willing to do that. They have to go through a lot of mental pressures. They need to have that ability. Like that was my favorite part of Armageddon, is like you can't just take any random person and put them. You see what she goes through later. Like that's pretty traumatic. Like if you're in a small space and all of a sudden you're being thrown around, like you can't just put someone in there that might break down.
I had one question I was going to ask you all, and it can be something where you can go into your response if you want to, or just a simple yes or no. But I wanted to ask each of you. There's a scene then at the reflection pool where they're walking around, they're talking, and they have this really, again, like it doesn't have to be. They end with a kiss. It doesn't have to be something physical or some actual confirmation of attraction. But they have this scene where they do kind of have some sort of tension between them, where you can tell he's attracted to her. He's intrigued by her. He says, "You're a very brave woman," and he gives her this conundrum where he asks her, "Why go? Why would you want to put yourself there? Because if you travel, you come back, everyone you love would be dead." And Ellie responds with, and I wrote it down here. He says, "If we find out the meaning, if even a slice of who we are in the universe and what our purpose is," she said, "I think that's worth a human life. That's worth my life." Do you agree with that?
I think that that's not up for me to decide. So I guess the question is two-pronged for me. It is not up for me to decide for someone else. It could be up for me to decide myself. If it was my decision that I want to go, which, to be clear, I don't, because I have a daughter that I am attached at the hip to, but
And a wife, right? And a wife.
And
Oh, when she came along, I moved down the totem pole. I understand. She's pretty damn cute. I do understand.
but the point being is that I have read too much science fiction. I've seen too much of this jumping around sort of.
Anybody else have a question?
It's Stephen Freeze.
I can hear him still talking,
Oh,
but he's
no.
frozen.
Oh.
We heard, oh
Hey,
no.
hey, welcome back.
We can hear you
Oh,
now.
am I back?
I'm moving now.
You're there,
Yeah.
Steven.
Back.
What
Okay.
were you
Outer
saying?
space.
I'm sorry, guys. I was just saying I would not make the decision for myself. I would say no for myself. But if someone else wanted to do it, and I'm sure there are other people, that's entirely their decision. And I think it's probably benefits the human race. I will be selfish in saying no, but I can't say that about if JC wants to go or if Tyler wants to go. It's not my decision.
Fair enough. Anybody else? Strong opinions? Yay or nay?
I didn't have any strong opinions on that, but more the fact that in the selection process, no one asked the question, how well do you guys know each other? Like, that somebody on the selection committee you slept with once.
That would be, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that was going to be like a plot point rather than it end up like the moment of him like, hey, do you believe in God? I thought it was going to be something where he was like intentionally setting it up for like a paparazzi to catch them interacting in public and sharing a smooch, and then they'd be
Oh.
like, whoa, scandal, this is
Mhm.
he can't select her because they're fraternizing with this committee. But
If you're
they
gonna
said they went the different route.
if you're gonna choose someone to represent, the world, and this is a highly important classified thing that they're doing, and these people are like the creme de la creme, that they're allowed to wander around out in public wherever, unhindered by any sort of surveillance
And she
or
slept her
security.
way to the top.
Ouch.
Be a common narrative
Common narrative.
feeding into that. Yeah.
So then, like JC just mentioned, the other question I had too is then at the actual selection committee, they are presented where they're talking, trying to understand what's going on with each of the individuals. It seems like they've been grueling them for a while. They say, thank you for your patience and your stamina. So it's obviously been a very grueling, long duration of the day where they're talking to them. And Palmer asked the question, do you believe in God? And it's obviously very pointed. We know the backstory. Obviously, the rest of the selection committee doesn't know that they know each other. Do you think that is too strong of a question? Obviously, it's very heavy-handed. What's your thoughts? Is it a valid question? Because then the other panel members say, well, 95% of the world thinks that there's some supreme being. Or do you think that that's a jackass move for him to do for her?
Porque no los dos.
Yeah.
Let's say, I think that it's I hate to say it. I think it's an entirely fair question if you're sending a representative of Earth, of the human species, and like they say, 96% believe in some sort of higher power. If the selection committee, these scientific masterminds, honestly believe that that's what we should portray, I don't see anything necessarily wrong with that. Would that rule out multiple people that I think should go? Probably, but that it's the same thing as saying if we were in a non-religious society and someone who just happened to believe in God wanted to go. I mean, is that the sort of impression that you want to give, or someone who? It's a big decision. Little things matter, especially for impressions, especially for how it shapes your viewpoint. Ellie has already shown multiple times that her scientific views affect her viewpoint and her opinion of people who are more religious. I think it's an entirely fair question. I think it was asked probably for an unfair reason, but it's an entirely fair question. Amanda?
I do think a little bit of both. It was definitely a completely bullshit question for him to ask. He was doing it for an agenda. He was doing it to punish and to do it, whatever he told himself, and which he admits later on. But me personally, I don't think it's a good question to ask. However, with so many people knowing that it would be an important question to them, it's going to come up. It's just a question that is going to matter to so many people. I think the committee should have their own list of like, hey, what's the criteria we're looking for? Are we actually looking for someone to represent everyone on Earth? Or are we looking for someone who is the most mentally and physically and like trained for the situation? Like, do they know what criteria they want? Because it does feel like you're interviewing for president of Earth instead of necessarily, hey, who's someone that'll make a good enough impression for everybody on Earth? But they did this in such a public, like Senate, like committee, televised with hundreds of people watching. There's no way that was not going to be a valid question for them. Like that was clearly going to be important for them.
So
I do like that she
doubling down on
answered it.
that,
I like how she answered it honestly.
would
She did always prove she's answering things honestly. Go ahead. Sorry.
would it have made a difference if he told her ahead of time that this is the reason I actually don't think you should go? Or is that kind of cut off the later conversation when I was like, I secretly didn't want you to go because I'm selfish.
She keeps having people make decisions for her, like about her. Like, I want to have you study this. I'm going to do this because I didn't want you to go. Wow, that's a good way to really get her cooperation. People love it when you make decisions about their life for them.
It's a very fictional movie about women in science. Yeah.
Exactly.
The most bullshit part of the question to me, honestly, is that like suddenly all the faiths of the world have decided, well, just as long as you believe something, that's fine. The differences in our religions, those don't matter anymore.
Those don't matter.
There are, yeah,
Right.
It's like
I mean,
there's
yeah.
among the faith people, like there are huge differences and core fundamental conflicts that have gone on for centuries, and now they're just like, well, is your God white? Then hey, good. That's what the bulk of us care about. And the rest of the people with the brown gods, no, whatever. The aspect that it's one of those things to me is like, if you're choosing a representative, do you want someone to be actually representative, or do you want it to be potentially the best candidate for the position? Because those are not always the same thing. The most representative and the best. In this case, the aliens have clearly been demonstrating a lot of knowledge of maths. They're communicating mostly through math and a lot of very scientific methods. So someone who is thinking in that logical, analytical, scientific way is the best candidate for this job. So in this case, that would be my argument to a committee, is that like I may not be the most religious person to go up there and talk to them, but I speak the language that they are speaking to us most fluently at this point. Steven?
I think to that point as well, one of the things that gets me about the movie is that they basically limit the pool of people to US people, because US hegemons at this time. So you'd have no Russians, you have no Chinese people, you have no Japanese, Nigerian, whoever. Like the idea that out of a pool of 3 or 4 billion people on Earth, you couldn't find one genius mathematician who also happened to believe in God, who also happened to be able to run a 5K, that gets me. Because the qualification...
Science doesn't exist outside the U.S. Only smart people live in the U.S. Everyone else is...
They even made that comment at one point where they're like, they still want an American. And I was like, why would they want what? What is the reasoning behind that?
Because the movie is so much more nationalistic than the book. The movie is so much more nationalistic.
It's interesting that you mentioned that earlier, yeah.
This is not the case in the book. But I think that out of that huge pool of people, you could easily find a person of faith who is a genius at mathematics who can run a 5K. That's not I don't think it's that hard a thing to find. Do they need to be a preacher? No. I don't think that's by any means something, but if you're just checking down the qualifications list, I think you're going to be able to find tons of genius mathematicians out there in every single walk of life.
The responses. So we know what happens, unfortunately. It shows then after she's answered her question, she says, I think I've already answered that, and kind of glowers, shoots a look over at Matthew McConaughey's character. We see that she's back in her room, and you can hear in the background that David Drumlin, Tom Skerritt's character, is feeding the line, exactly like what the panel wants to hear. He says, I'd hate to see us betray everything we've stood for, the wars we fought in the last minute, because we don't have someone who shares, quote unquote, our common beliefs.
Our values.
our values, which again
Who did they fight the
highlights
wars
the
against?
differences
That's what I want to know.
which highlights the differences that JC was mentioning too, and the fact that all these different religions are not the same. So our shared beliefs and values are totally different from one hemisphere to the next. Which,
Mhm.
you know,
Do you feel like she knew that was the wrong answer? I always think of it as
Yeah.
any job interview I've
yeah.
ever been in.
I
I've
don't think
answered the question, but I also understand that that was not the right answer.
I don't think she ever thought her answers were wrong. I think she knew in her heart of hearts that that was not the answer they were looking for. I think she would
yeah.
say
That-
her answer was 100% right.
That
I
was
think,
a better way of putting it, yeah.
and I think that's fair because they're looking for a specific candidate, and she's not that specific candidate. I don't think that makes her a bad person or necessarily even a bad like anything to that extent. It's just not the person they were trying to find. Is it again unfortunate that Dave Drumlin is probably willing to lie to get into the position? We're never told that he's not religious, by the way. But he probably lied. Yeah, that is definitely unfortunate.
It's easier to hate him if we think he lies.
It's not
It's
lying
also-
if you just exaggerate. Just
But not a single
exaggerate.
person was like, and you giving us this answer knowing what the previous person answered
Right?
isn't at all meant like
Exactly. Well, I mean, Ellie's listening to what David Drumlin's saying, so it's easy to believe that, yeah, these are all televised responses. So if I know I'm not, or again, if David has any pull with the committee since he was there when they were talking about it, can he be like, can you please have me go last so I can hear what everybody else?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like,
Says in
if
their interview.
if this is the truth, you
reason.
want to go either first or last.
a
Like,
lot of these people must be pretty cynical in terms of other like having to interview lots of different people. That's not a red flag to any of them. That wasn't a red flag of like, oh, he's willing to just tell me what I want to hear and not necessarily the truth. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I get that he's thought pretty well of, but that was such a clearly like aimed at her answer. I would be, I guess, as an interviewer, I'd be like, I'm interested in what you do, not what you think of other candidates.
Yeah. And he never once mentions Ellie, but he's like, I'd hate to think that we would send the wrong person who didn't believe the things we believe. Meanwhile, you know, every
Is
person
that-
of color on that panel is like, are you talking about me?
is that a stylistic movie choice to create a dichotomy, like
A villain, basically.
a comparison
Yeah.
between like Ellie
foil.
wasn't willing to say that, this person was, so that's why they win. Like, it wasn't even. I'm sure the book is probably a little more nuanced of like that he maybe
But
had
as-
other qualifications and he was his own man, but for a movie you break it down to like faith. She doesn't have faith, he does. Winner. Next scene.
He's definitely condescending and acerbic in the book, but nowhere near the level that he is made out to be in the movie. And I attribute that to the movie has to have a villain, and you're going to make this guy the villain. It's an unfortunate trope, but a woman has to have a love interest, and a movie has to have a villain. You can't do a movie without either.
I feel like they soften him after he's selected though. Like where
I
she
agree.
goes up to him and is like,
Fair
"Oh, well, I didn't expect you were going to be here." And she's like, "This is my like life's dream. Of course, I'm going to be here."
I still have
And
some
he's like,
PR.
oh yeah, I
There's
still
a
have
couple
something
moments.
to say. Like, I can still help the public in a different way. But also like she warned. Well, I guess she warns him that he's gonna like that shit's gonna go sideways.
Yeah.
To save the mission.
She's the bigger
Also,
person.
Jake Busey is fucking terrifying. Like every scene in this movie, like even it just as a random like terrorist, he's just like, oh shit, he's a terrorist. That guy's not supposed to be there.
I know JC was going to say something, so I'm not going to jump
Okay.
in front of him here. But
JC, what do you got, bud?
No, it was I don't even remember anymore.
I will say since then, yeah, it is. Since Gary brought up the Jake Busey scene, I did attribute it to Hamlin's character that when it is getting so late, I forgot the name of the main character. God damn it, Ellie.
Ellie.
Yeah, when Ellie tells him there is an issue, look behind you. He doesn't even for a second question her. He is,
Mhm.
let's do it. All right, what are you telling me? I'm trusting you with this. Let's do this. And I thought
Yeah.
that I couldn't remember exactly how it went in the movie before I watched it, but I think it spoke well to his character, because that could have easily been a pot when, sure, Ellie, whatever you have to say. This isn't your time.
He's just a bitter person.
But she's honest. That's the trust.
Yeah.
If he had said that
I-
to her,
Go ahead.
what would she have done? I wonder if it was turned around.
I think he probably respects her as a scientist, that like there's information like we're at a critical juncture of this thing like going off, like this is important information you need to know right now, like please check this dial or do this and like make sure, like I feel like if they said like some dial was going hot, he'd be like, hold on, let me go check that. Like he's probably hyper vigilant, because he's gonna put his ass on the line. But
So
whatever.
that was the next thing I was going to talk about too, is that scene where it explodes. I had a comment. You can feel free to talk about it too, or contradict if anyone has anything else they wanted to add. But yeah, to keep it going, I had highlighted that explosion part. It was interesting that it's right after the scene in the selection committee where they ask Ellie, "What's one question you would ask the alien species if you could ask one question?" And she says, "How did you do it? How did you evolve? How did you survive this technological adolescence without destroying yourself?" Would be her question. And then that's exactly what happens in the next scene, is that we have this massive technological advancement and we can finally talk to the heavens, and no, we're not capable as a species yet. There's got to be some sort of violence and juxtaposition that goes against that.
Also,
I-
they didn't keep people far enough away from Cape Canaveral. Like they're used to shooting off rockets into space, and there's a safe distance you keep people away. This thing breaks down in the worst possible way that is foreseeable. Like it shoots shrapnel out, and you still have people in the blast radius of shrapnel. Like they're too close. Like I feel like you televise it, but you wouldn't let anyone that close.
No, yeah. Yeah, so there's the explosion, and we find out that Jake Busey's character has a bomb on him, which again, how? What security is not going to be 18-fold there that he gets to be just walking around with, presumably not a passport.
This is before the
9/11.
yeah, before that. So
1990s.
but still, like I feel like you've got to like, especially you'd have to bullshit your way to be like a pretty smart guy to even be a technician on a like brand new piece of machinery. Like I assume you're not just some random welder from down the street. I assume you are there for a reason. Like especially in that critical juncture, like you want as few people there as need be.
So yeah, I wrote down, just in discussing after the explosion, I wrote down in parentheses, I wish we lived in the kind of world where David Drumlin gets to go into outer space and pursue his dreams, but unfortunately we don't live in that kind of world. Anyway, on to Ellie's idealism. Being rewarded.
Oh boy, JC, what are we doing here?
Oh man, we had a big discussion around this movie. It got a little bit wild, a little bit long. So we are actually going to do our first two-part episode on a single episode here. So we will be back next time. It got a little bit late for that.
Yeah. Life gets in the way sometimes of recording these episodes. So you just got to kind of know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and know when to stop the recording.
Right. Know when it's time to walk away and have a bleary-eyed morning at work the next day anyway.
Exactly. Well, dear listener, like we had mentioned here, we are going to cut the podcast right here, but don't worry, we'll be back with part 2 for Contact here shortly. So stay tuned, keep an eye out, and we'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Bye.